Why wouldn't I want to continue sitting here?
Well, because we're not going to start talking yet.
Oh, no, we're just going to snack and eat. It's not quite 7.
Okay.
You might want to set up the Facebook feed now.
I know, yeah.
I know.
I just want to get this straight.
Okay, so we're live now. Okay, so you can set up the Facebook one.
Okay.
So I'll go over here. You know, there's nobody watching yet, so we got a little bit of time. Let me go to YouTube. Okay, there's 2 people watching. Hello, whoever's watching. It's not quite 7 yet. Oh, let me push on mute. Dinner. Hello, Adam G. Hi. Thanks for tuning in. We're just kind of we're getting set up on our Facebook page as well. Thank you for joining. Let me pull this computer a little bit closer so I can chat with people. Okay, so this is, so did you go to the Facebook?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook now. Yeah.
Okay. It's backwards on the computer.
Yeah, Facebook is that Facebook or
No, this
YouTube?
is YouTube. Now let me look at Facebook and see what's going on. We're just setting up the technology now.
How's that look?
Looks good. Let's see what we got going on over here. I don't see us doing anything on Facebook. Are you live on Book of Hours or are you live on your own channel?
Book of Hours.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we are. Okay, great. So I can see us on,
How's it look?
good. I'm gonna have to move. So it's completely different on the,
What's the Facebook one look like?
looks good. That one looks good.
Okay, cool.
All right, so let me see if I can turn down the brightness on the screen so it doesn't show. But I still want to be able to see the chats as they come in. I don't want the glare of the screen on my
Yeah, can you
face.
still read the chats?
Yeah, as long as I'm close enough. Okay, we're setting up the technology. It's not quite 7 o'clock. We've got about 5 to 7 more minutes thanks you guys for being so patient. We're just, you know, we've got a couple of hours ahead of us, so we want to make sure that we get the technology up right, because we've got 2 devices streaming, and then I have my laptop over here that I'm checking in with. JP is fixing stuff. Well, anyway, cheers. How you guys doing? Cheers.
Yep. As we said, we'd be drinking, and we are.
There is drinking involved.
Drinking is involved. And we have our snacks.
Yeah, I need a little more light. That's better. There's a little delay on Facebook. That's okay, but there's 3 people joining us so far, so it's not quite 7 o'clock. We're gonna let more people join if you want, or if we want.
Yeah. Go get yourself a drink.
Get yourself a drink and a snack. Let's see if we have any chats. I don't see.
Okay.
They might show up there though. It's hard to know. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Couple more minutes. So we're going to talk about the last year. What's been going on the last year. We would love it if you guys want to make a comment in the chat. You know, if you have a question, if you just, you know, you want to say something, like anything at all about like what's happened to you, anything specifically that may have happened to you over the last year. Hey, if you guys could also let us know if you could hear us, that would be great. If the music's too loud, let us know. Okay. What do we have going on here? We've got 6 people watching on YouTube right now. So we've got a couple more minutes. So if you guys could just let us know if you can hear me. You're coming in clear. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. That would be Geneva on YouTube. Said we're coming in clear. What about Facebook? Are we coming in clear on Facebook? Let us know. Let us know if you can hear us okay on the Facebook live stream. Like I said, we have 2 devices going. JP is still getting things ready. Are you coming back? Because it's...
Yeah.
Okay. He's like disappeared. So, all sounds good. Who's watching on Facebook? Yes, great. Hi, Rod. How are you? Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining as well, Kev. Hi, Kevin. Kevin is my real life friend. Oh, and Coag Music. Awesome. Awesome. Let's see what we have here. Christine says, would watch you on Facebook, but I'm banned. I know, everybody's banned, right? Well, you know, that's why we have YouTube as a backup. But I hope you don't mind. We have a couple of hours ahead of us, so JP and I have some drinks that we are partaking in. There will be water and wine and alcohol and some snacks here and there. We'll try not to be like stuffing our face while we eat. We're gonna officially start at 7, so this is just kind of, you know, hanging out, doing a sound check, you know, making sure you guys can see everything okay. We have a cat around here somewhere. But yeah, so I think that it's really important that we kind of address, you know, what's been going on over the last over the last year and find out how people are doing. Okay, so Rod is going to switch over to YouTube. Okay, that's fine. You can switch over to YouTube. It's totally fine. Yeah, we have 2 devices going. I'm really glad that you guys, tuned in to join us this evening for our 1-year anniversary discussion of the national emergency. So it's about 6:59. So I am going to do what I plan to do. Gather round. Gather round, boys and girls.
Tell me, what are you doing?
Gather round.
Oh boy.
Hello. Who do I see? Who do I see joining us? I see Kevin and Coag and Geneva and Rob. Hello. We're in Pittsburgh. So
and there's Scotty and Joey and Susie and Mary.
So we live in Pittsburgh. So this is our really bad homage to
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Right. Show them show them. Juniper too.
Oh,
I
hi.
see Juniper.
And Juniper.
And,
Gather round.
and Sherry
boys
B.
And girls. Hi, Sherry B. Sherry B, we sent you an email earlier, and we're just going to put it out there. Sorry. We were in a mood last night.
Yep.
So please forgive us. All is forgiven, hopefully. Boy, were we in a mood last night, weren't we? Anyway, hopefully this will make all things better. Gather around, everybody. Let's talk about being a good neighbor. Okay, enough of that, right? That's my really bad homage to Dr. Seuss.
Mr.
Mr. Rogers. Okay, and we also have our tongue drum, which is kind of taking up a lot of space. I'll lift it up. See? So if you hear, some dulcet sounds coming out of the microphone, that's me. Hi, Sherry. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, we were in a bad mood last night. If you tuned in last night to our audio on Facebook, I yelled so loud I lost my voice.
Yeah, she was pretty pissed off.
My voice was pretty hoarse. I was pretty mad.
And we can talk about.
We'll talk a little bit about that too.
Not the incident yesterday, but just the
incident.
No, the recording.
It was a throwdown.
It was
me versus Whitney Webb.
Yeah.
In the ring.
In the ring.
No,
Oh.
I'm kidding. Anyway, so what did we want to start with? We want to talk about how this is the official 1-year anniversary of the national emergency. So on March 13th, hi Josette. Hi Josette. Welcome to our neighborhood.
All right.
Gather round. Okay, so we want to talk about how this is the 1-year anniversary of the national lockdown.
Haven't been on a Facebook
Haven't been on FB in a while.
No.
Yeah. No, we understand. That's totally fine. We're glad that you're tuning in here today. So on March 13th, Donald Trump came out and said, I'm officially declaring the United States under a national emergency. And under a national emergency, the rules of the rule of law is suspended, which means that civil rights are suspended, constitutional rights are suspended, human rights are suspended. With this idea that we all have to pull together as a country to face this terrible national emergency, which usually comes in the form of, like war. So,
Right, yeah.
But as you know, there's no war, and
Well, it's a war on humanity.
it is a war on
Yeah,
humanity.
yeah.
And I think that one thing that we wanted to talk about too was like everything that we've discovered over the last year. Like everybody's coming at this from their own place,
Their own perspective, their own place. Yeah, for sure.
So we're coming, the second the national emergency was declared a year ago today, we came at it with this. It is a complete and total psychological operation. It has to do with resetting a new form of capitalism or a new form of the way we function in this economy, and that if anybody really truly like embraces the idea of a disease or a pandemic, then they're going through a psychotic break, like they're having a psychotic meltdown,
Right.
or
Well,
they're in the throes of a psychotic episode.
Right, exactly. And we also saw it right from the beginning to be basically to be. Sorry, I'm a little distracted.
No, it's okay. Don't read. I will read. You
okay,
talk.
all right, yeah. Sorry, Age of Reason. Thank you. She'll look at that. We saw it right from the beginning as propaganda, basically, as a marketing campaign and as propaganda.
Yeah.
And to prove that, we went out. We stayed here actually, and we did a 12-hour marathon reading of 1984, a week after. So it was March 22nd. So it was about a week after the announcement of the lockdown of the national emergency, and but we knew this to be what it really is. It's it was propaganda. It was a marketing campaign. And it's we're in 2 weeks and counting, right? We wouldn't be celebrating a year, uncelebrating a year if it was supposed to be 2 weeks and it stayed 2 weeks. But
Right.
I digress.
So it turned into one thing that I wanna talk about is. I think it was even before the national emergency was declared, so it was like within the first week or so of March. JP and I went to IKEA. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was either right after the national emergency or
No, it was before.
right before.
Yeah.
And there was this talk of a virus, like the Wuhan virus. And so I was at IKEA, and I had come out of the restroom, and a mother and a daughter came out of the restroom after me, and the mother said, and ironically enough, I think the girl's name was Allison, and she said, "Allison, did you wash your hands?" And Allison ignored her, and the mother said it again in a more shrieky, authoritarian voice. "Allison, I asked you a question. Did you wash your hands?" And the little girl ignored her again. And she got even more shrill and more authoritarian and was like, "Did you wash your hands?" And the girl was finally like, "No." And then she's like, "Why not?" And she became this hysterical, overbearing, authoritarian, borderline psychotic mother, right? And, and I thought to myself, good for you, little girl. Stand up for yourself. That's how we should have addressed this from the very beginning. We should have ignored everything from the very beginning. And then when they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, we should have said, shut the fuck up and no, like the little girl did.
No.
And, no, like that,
Well, I'm thinking about your video that you just put out, use your words with the little 2-year-old.
The little 2-year-old. No.
That shrill little voice.
That's what we should have done from the very beginning. And I think back to that, first interaction that there was something wrong in society. I think back to that, those few seconds at IKEA where I witnessed this whole thing go down between this mother and daughter. And I think about that poor child, because I know that over the last year, because of all the propaganda and because of her shrieky, overbearing, authoritarian mother, that poor little girl has probably had her will and her individual feelings and thoughts cudgeled out of her, and now she's probably wearing a mask all the time. She's probably a shell of what she used to be. She's probably a shell of that version of the little girl that I saw for a few minutes in IKEA, where she was strong and standing up for herself. And that's what really, I think we can all agree across the board that is the thing that has disturbed us all the most is the destruction of the child's experience their childhood has been robbed from them.
Yeah.
And they don't even know who they are as individuals anymore because everything is done through the mask. You know, everything is done through the lens of COVID. You know, everything, the way you operate your life now is through COVID-19. You know, you can't just be anymore. You
Right.
can't just be a human. You have to be a human that is possibly a carrier of a pathogen.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
And of course, as we've said before, and you probably heard from other people at this point, that the pathogen talk is going to transmit into carbon talk, right? So not only do you carry pathogens, you also are the you are a spewing carbon machine, and that you shouldn't be around because you're destroying the planet by just living.
Right.
And so these are the kinds of, this is the kind of BS we're going to start getting in the future. We're getting it now in another format, but it's going to be the same rhetoric, just a different word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to read this right now. I have a blog piece that I wrote, but
Right, well,
I'm not sure.
we have that scheduled
We were
for
just
the
kind
later,
of
yeah.
feeling it out, seeing how
Well,
we felt.
let's jump into like what we were going to talk about.
We're keeping it. We're trying to keep it loose, but you know us. It's like everything has to be curated.
Well,
so
the thing is,
we
though,
do have talking points.
Yeah, we have talking points, but the thing is, if we don't, then we just
then we just blah blah blah.
And,
like
you know,
we have no,
it
like,
could be. I mean, which is fine. Which is fine. I'm enjoying watching people comment. I'm glad to see everybody come in.
Yeah.
And I feel a little spacey too, so I might, it might have been me just kind of drooling for the next 2 hours watching the screen, but I doubt that very much.
If I'm over here, it's because I'm responding to some of my favorite people.
So one of the things that we were talking about was the Rescue Act, or what we wanted to talk about was the Rescue Act. I posted something on Facebook of the famous Lucy holding the football. And Charlie Brown going to kick it, and of course she pulls it away. And I knew that was going to happen with Biden and this whole thing, and damn sure he did. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to give you money, but we're going to jujitsu the money. And what I love is that they came out and said, well, we're going to give you this money, but guess what? This time, the money isn't protected from your creditors. So you went into debt big time this year because, this year. And
I know, it's
and
so
now
cruel.
Your creditors
can go after
that money. Right.
Like, what the hell? That's not a rescue. That is a
payoff to the creditors.
That's a mob-like tactic. We're going to put you out of business, and then we'll give you a loan. And then when you can't, we'll give you a loan, or we'll give you some money. It's basically a loan. That's all it is.
I mean, they might as well just give that money to
directly
the
to the creditors. So these
even,
poor people are like, look, this is all, they're just watching their income disappear. So
here, hungry person, I'm eating I have a plate of food for you, but oh wait, it's for this other person who doesn't need to eat.
Right. So the Rescue Act is just, well, we all know, right? You all know that it's just a big pile of garbage,
right.
And it's really just Lucy pulling the football away all the time.
The other thing that we were talking about together was the cover. So basically, covering up using human rights, as a cover up for, say, gun control. Right, and the way that they're doing this...
No, gun control is used as a way to cover human rights violations.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, there's some gun control issues in the bill, in the now law or whatever it is.
Right.
And basically, it's a means of getting at people through psychological welfare. Say, well, we're going to make sure that you are a safe person to have around, because we can't have you owning guns if you're unstable. And so we're going to talk to everybody that you know. We're going to talk to your family and your friends and all the people who hate you. So as Julie was saying this morning, it's like, well, what if, they're going out and talking to your psychopathic mother who you stopped talking to
5 years ago, or
right?
your ex your ex-husband or your ex-boyfriend or ex-friends or whatever. I mean, can you imagine like what a shit show that would be?
Right.
Like I just
and this is going to happen in other ways too. And so this all points back to the whole
5150.
5150. But like I don't know, about a few years ago, I don't know if you remember or not. A few years ago, there was all this talk about, now make sure you check in with your friends, make sure they're okay, because people are feeling bad, and we want to make sure that those who are feeling depressed or who are feeling distraught or suicidal, that we want them around. So check in on your friends and make sure they're okay. And Julie and I just basically said, no, this is another psyop. This is basically the authorities using the means to identify people who have problems with depression and whatnot. Now, that depression is basically brought about through modern life and capitalist practices, right?
Why are you depressed? I'm
I
in
don't
America.
I live in America. What else is new?
Because America.
Because America.
What the
right,
hell?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, come on.
Exactly. So.
Remember that? Why are you like this? Because America.
Because America. Well, yeah.
Yeah, the Rescue Act is really scary. It's really scary, and here I am, somebody who doesn't even engage in electoral politics, and I told somebody recently that, the Trump's CARES Act was better. It was better, and the person's like, a Trump supporter, and they're like shocked because I am not, involved in electoral politics at all. But I'm like, the Trump CARES Act was better. It wasn't punitive. No. It wasn't punitive. So that's a word. Gather round. That's a word that we should all be repeating over and over again. Mm-hmm. It's punitive. Your existence is now punishable. It's punishing.
Right. Well, you mentioned Trump, and we were talking about this too. This isn't on our list, but somebody brought up that somebody that I listened to on streaming radio.
It was better, yeah.
He was also pushing the thing about the mental health thing. Like, oh, check in on your friends, because he does everything that liberals tell him to do. The liberal media or the liberal politics tell him to do, and he does it, right? Well, he's all on board with Trump being the 70-year-old, 7-year-old, orange-faced, whatever, blah blah blah, all the names that they used, right?
I'm tired of that nonsense.
And I didn't like the guy. I didn't vote for him, but that was bullshit.
You can tell when it's just a game.
It's just a game, and it's just propaganda, and it's just a means of dividing the society more. Mm-hmm. But he was talking about how the former presidents all got together, and that they didn't invite that little child of a man. And it's a good thing.
Right.
It's a good thing that he didn't get invited.
Well, actually, it only makes him more popular.
Right. Well, that too. But what I wanted to point out is that this is scripted, first of all. Okay. And second of all,
not this.
Not us. But that action, that event is basically, it was intended. Like, no, we are going to keep him separate.
Right.
Because
and he's in on it, probably.
Well,
he knows.
maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. But the point is that this is not about partisan politics, because there was a Bush in there, right?
Right.
Bush was, if you remember, Bush a few years ago was lifted up as a new Democrat. All the Democrats suddenly loved W. Bush, where it's like,
That's true, they did.
Yeah, 20 years ago they fucking hated him and called him Hitler. Right. So now he's lifted up, and Ellen was hanging out with him and all this bullshit, right?
Yeah,
and dancing with him.
About it. I called Ellen the new Eva Braun.
Right. Anyway, so what this is it's not partisan politics. What it is it's a separation between the establishment politics, the establishment meaning the Republicans and the Democrats who are in the establishment, against people who are for populism. So if you remember, Bernie Sanders has been sidelined scriptedly sidelined. He gets bad-mouthed, and we mentioned a thing about Senator Sinema from Arizona, who went up to the place in Congress to put her vote in, and she's like,
Yeah, for the $15 minimum
Right,
wage.
for the $15 minimum
it's
wage.
all
So
theater.
you know, and who was bad mouthing? It was like a celebrity bad mouthing Bernie Sanders. I don't know, but
Who doesn't badmouth
well,
Bernie
that's just it. I
Sanders?
mean, well, yeah. I mean, now, you know, because he was a sellout, you know, we're all like, oh, fuck Bernie Sanders. But you know, the other side too. I mean, like, you know, AOCs and the whole, you know, progressives. You know, they're like taking their pot shots at Sanders. But this is also part of that theater that I was talking about, where, you know, you have the establishment, because AOC is part of the establishment, and all these junior Congress critters who were voted in recently, who are part of that whole AOC crowd, okay, they're also part of the establishment, and they are pooping on the on the populace, right? Mm-hmm. So all the people that thought that Trump was going to, you know, do something different and drain the swamp, they were voting for a populist.
Right.
All the people that were behind Bernie Sanders, they were voting for a populist. They are anti-establishment politics, and that's what's going on. That's the message.
That's the big
of
message.
That presidential former president's gathering and hoopla and and rubber chicken dinner.
Right. So it's all establishment, you know, presidents from both sides of the aisle, so to speak, and the person who wasn't establishment and was a populist wasn't invited.
Exactly.
So there you go.
There you go.
So the message there tells you that you, the people, when you go for what you want, you don't matter.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You know, that's what that message is about.
Right.
What are some of the other things that we really wanted to talk about?
Before you get into the next one, do you want another cocktail?
Sure. And you know what? While you're doing that, I'll go ahead and talk about abusive parents.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's a cheery
See you in a minute.
subject. You know? No, so I think that COVID-19 has been, well, there's the whiskey.
Yeah, well, that's...
And go get the ginger in the other room. I think that, you know, COVID-19 has given an opportunity for abusive parents to abuse their children without accountability. Like, they can just use COVID as a cover. You know, you've got to stay in your room for 2 weeks, and we've got to treat you like a prisoner. And
you want to talk about that incident?
We can feed you your food under the door and slide it through the slot like you're a prisoner, and then we can talk to each other through the wall. You know. And it's like this whole prison experience, and a lot of abusive parents are just like loving it. They're loving COVID-19 because it gives the green light. It makes it okay for them to abuse their kids, all in the name of safety. And so I think that is one of the most insidious aspects of what we've seen over the last year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the children's suicide has risen, you know, through the roof. Like, I've never heard of a child committing suicide, right?
Not
like, I've
the
never heard.
Not the age group that are happening.
And we have the highest rate of child suicide over the last year. And I'm starting to think that, you know, it's not just like bullying at school or feeling like, you know, maybe you didn't have like a fancy enough mask or something and you got ridiculed hard by your classmates on the Zoom calls that you were in class or whatever. And that, you know, because kids are really bullying and mean online. I mean, that's what's going on now, right? In general, even before COVID. No, I actually think that the rise of suicide, and this is just an armchair analysis, it's not based on fact or anything, it's just based on, you know, thinking. I actually think the rise in suicide probably has something to do with, like, the parents. You know, the kids have nowhere to escape. They have nowhere to go. As was mentioned early on in this thing, when kids from abusive families at least were able to get to school and get away from it. So I think the rise in suicide, there's a big percentage of that has to do with parental abuse that they just get away with. There's no place for the child to escape. So it's pretty unconscionable. It's pretty horrific. And, you know, I hate the parents for doing that to the kids, using COVID as an excuse to be the abusive parents that they never got to be before, or at least not to the extent that they are now. Is that Kev? Yeah. Kev says, that's a pretty strong drink there. I'm watching through the reflection in the window.
You watch me making the drinks.
Kevin, just so you guys know, Kevin's actually been to this house. Yeah.
So what we have is this is not
What is this? This is like a triple. What the hell is this?
This is not an ad. Well, that's the ice. So larceny whiskey.
Yeah, look, it's almost gone.
We got another one.
Not for
beer.
tonight. Not for tonight.
Yeah, not for tonight. Ginger
Okay.
beer and
the last
peach brandy.
The last of the peach.
You want some more ginger beer?
No, I'm good.
Ginger beer and bada bing cherries.
Okay, so now we're gonna get a little bit interesting. Like, we're gonna talk about what I like to call the genesis of the podcaster over the last year. Look at this, the genesis of the podcaster. So we'll start out with a little bit of a rant. So we noticed that after we came onto the scene with some of our video essays and our documentary style commentary that you enjoy, and some of you are patrons, thank you for that. Don't get too drunk too fast, we won't. That all of a sudden, people like James Corbett really started upping their game.
Right. Yeah.
If you noticed, his latest videos have been really, it's like watching us.
Mm-hmm.
There's music, there's visuals, there's artwork, there's,
he's always done, his films or his documentaries, right? But they've never had like a very high production value standard. But he's definitely upped his game.
Right. We noticed Patrick Henningsen.
Right, from 21st
music that we use. Like, he never used music before in any of his 21st Century Wire.
Now, the music that we used is free music out there on YouTube.
It's free music, but we found it first. I found it like a year ago, even long before COVID.
And, whatever. Right? I mean, that's fine. It's odd to hear.
It's fine.
Listen, we're not saying, he can't do that. We're saying it's just funny.
It's funny to go, wow, I spent hours and hours researching the right kind of music to support my script, and now I'm hearing the same exact artist and the same exact song in Patrick Henningsen's
recent video,
which is basically just him reading, off a script. He's doing an audio piece for his station or his channel, and that's totally fine. But the funniest thing ever is what I like to call the evolution of the podcaster, or the genesis of the podcaster, because the thing about COVID-19 is it brought people who were had a background in science or virology or immunology, or people who were PPE experts. It brought all these people who had these really scientific or biological backgrounds. It brought them, into the video world, where they were like, oh my God, we have to say something. This thing is out of control. Everybody's doing it wrong. Everybody, no, don't put a mask on. You're doing it wrong. No, and they're like, we have to do something. And they all have scientific backgrounds of some sort, from the medical community, from the environmental community, the biological community. Yeah. So they're not really the kind of people. They don't really have marketing backgrounds. I have a theater background. He has an art degree. Right. They're not really into aesthetics. So there was this one woman who, for the first few months, we were listening to her, and
okay, so now we're going to talk about...
It's really important that I tell you that you really shouldn't wear a mask because they disrupt your, and the bacteria will get in, or one that were you would see up their nostrils, and so we were talking oh, are we going to watch the lady who we only see this part of her, this part of her face?
She's the Wilson of podcasting.
Right, so if you ever watch that show, Home Improvement, there's a character Wilson, and you only ever saw this much of him, from, he would always talk over the fence to Tim. And then there was some that you would see that you could see straight up their nostrils, and then, or the lighting was really bad.
Yeah, because they'd talk to their laptops and they would have the camera set up in such a way that was just really uncomfortable.
Right.
And, so they're all starting to,
Right, so we noticed that over time, if you go back and you watch some of their older videos from a year ago, it's hysterical. They're down here. It's really... it's really funny. And over time, they've gotten better. They're oh wait, that doesn't look right. So They've adjusted their camera. Does the military have to get the COVID? That's a good question. I don't know. We were talking about the genesis of the podcaster, like how the podcaster has evolved over time. It's really funny.
We have hidden a lot of our more embarrassing podcasts of our early years.
Oh my gosh!
Right from the beginning, we were all about the setting, okay, and the lighting, making sure everything was good.
Oh, when we first started,
but we were really
super stiff. We were like this
and quiet too.
And quiet.
Julie, what do you think about what's going on?
Well,
because I think
JP, what do you think about
this? This is your subject, so
this
I want you to talk about it.
No, like we were horrible. We were so dry. We had no personality.
We took everything like really seriously, stuff that we shouldn't have taken.
And you go back and you watch this crap, and you're like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. Why did I ever think that this was remotely serious or should have even been addressed in a podcast?
You know what? The thing is, you have to learn. You learn how this is the act of practice or the practice, right?
Right.
And you learn through doing, right? And so the subjects, okay, the subjects that you choose to do, like NPR, I guess we're a little like NPR.
No. She's talking about how boring NPR is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Hi, Lucy Cat.
The subject that you choose, the way that you talk, the way that you deliver, and over time you learn how to talk. Now, on the other hand, our comedy was awesome.
Yeah, no, because we have the marketing and the theater background, and
we attempted satire. You can go to our satire list, and
we nailed the satire. So we're good with that.
I don't know about that.
Well, I think we did. Oh my God! Remember Earthquake Preparedness Month?
No, we're Earthquake Prevention
Month. Earthquake Prevention Month.
That's right.
So we on April Fools we went live, and we had badges on our clothing.
That was a bar sinister?
A bar sinister through the word earthquake. And we told everybody to stop walking hard on the San Francisco pavement.
Right, no jumping up and down on the pavement.
And people actually believed us because we were so deadpan. We were so no, it's really important that you don't play on the jungle gyms.
Right.
Don't get on the cable cars, especially the cable cars. We had everybody fooled. It was so funny, especially people who were not from San Francisco.
Right.
Our San Francisco friends were like, oh, there they go again.
Oh my God.
They're such nerds,
The one thing that I said was, there was a moratorium on construction in the month of April because it's Earthquake Prevention Month.
Right. So all of construction suddenly had to stop, which is...
And they were putting extra... extra cushy tires on the buses and trucks, and
so we're actually going to do something really funny for April Fools this year.
Not a video though, I don't think.
No, not a video, but we'll figure something out. So let's move on to another topic. But just please go back and watch some of your favorite podcasters from a year ago and see the genesis of them.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how they've evolved from being hello, I need to tell you about the dangers of masks to, actually presenting, having a better presentation. I think that's hilarious. Censorship. Mm-hmm. Obviously, everyone's getting kicked off their platforms right and left. Can somebody find out if Michael Goldman is okay? I mean, is he back with us or is he on another 30-day ban? It's every time I turn around, somebody that we're connected to or somebody that we know personally is in Facebook jail or Twitter jail or YouTube jail. It's Jesus, so the censorship is out of control. And with that is kind of a larger message, which is that under the national emergency, all constitutional protections are suspended and all rights are suspended, and that's obviously a very serious thing. So this is why when the state of Texas, when the governor for the state of Texas literally comes out and says, you do not need to do anything, you do not need to socially distance, all venues can open up, and everybody you can go see a band the way you could see a band before the national emergency. You don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to do this to your kids. Everything can go back to normal. I promise you, it's good. It's good. This is why you still have people getting the shit kicked out of them for not wearing a mask. And so you're like, but wait a minute, the governor said that it's okay, so why are people getting arrested? Why are people getting abused for not wearing a mask when there's no law in place? And in fact, the governor even stressed that there's no
Right.
law. Stop this.
Right.
Why is that? Because under the national emergency, the rule of law is suspended, so it doesn't matter. You go by what the corporations want, or what the businesses want, or
Right.
what the Walmarts want, or the stores want, or the venues, or the coffee shops, or the restaurants, or
Right.
your employer tells you
Well,
you have to do.
And we've talked about this in our recent bookmark, I believe, recently, how the government basically put their orders out there. The governors put their orders out there, their mandates, and basically the government at some point stopped backing that up and just relied on the corporations to be the bullies and the watchdogs and the guard dogs of these policies, right? So then those things became corporate policy, and then from there, you had it turned over to the people who work in these companies or the people who shop at these stores to turn around and become the watchdogs and the bulldogs and the bullies, and that's how that progression took place, and it literally is a form of censorship by means of proxy, right?
Right. So in wartime tactics, you've got your little proxies that work on behalf of the would-be dictator or the would-be tyrannical leader who's trying to take over the country or take over your region. So you've all heard of proxy. Like, this is how this is how Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, was able to infiltrate Libya through proxy armies,
Right.
to come in, terrorists
Well, or even
that came in.
even journalists, right?
And journalists,
And
right.
there's this controversy with, like, say, Iran and the woman that was arrested and put into jail who was teaching Iranians how to become Western-style journalists, and she was like, I wasn't working for anybody. I wasn't working for the British government. I wasn't working for what is the company she works for, Reuters or something. I'm not working for that. I'm just doing this on my own. And the Iranian government were like, no, you are acting. They said spy, but basically you're acting as a proxy for Western state interests,
Right.
and undermining our society and our state and our
Okay,
whatever.
so who's the proxy?
So she was the proxy that was
I know,
going in.
right now.
Oh, right now.
Under the national emergency, under the state of emergency that we live in, and this desire to regime change, American citizens into, slaves for corporations, I guess. Let's just keep it simple. Who is the proxy army that is doing this, beating down the American population? It is your clergy, your doctor, the guy who bags your groceries, your librarian, your grandma.
Every single
your
Trader
teacher,
Joe's employee.
Every single Trader Joe's employee, every single Whole Foods and Sprouts employee. They're all a proxy army. They're a proxy army for the establishment, for the government, for the state-backed government or the corporate-backed state. They're acting as if they have the right to impose violence on you, because anytime somebody tells you that you need to wear a mask in order to engage in public accommodation, that is imposing a violation of your human rights on you.
Right.
And that is a bully, and that is also a proxy army.
Right.
So, if you're looking at this the way you would look at the art of war, that's what this is.
There's a conversation going on in the background.
There really is a conversation going
on YouTube.
I'm glad though, because I want more people to talk. I mean, I think everybody wants more people to talk,
Right.
obviously.
Right. So
But-
and then so along the same lines, in say like media circles or public personas, what used to happen, and I'm thinking about a particular persona, Vox.
Okay.
Harry Vox.
Harry. Mhm.
In the past, he had been like, he had come out with an article that discredited a certain event, and he was basically harassed by the CIA, FBI, local police. They basically surrounded his building and harassed him and things like that.
Oh yeah.
And that's an expensive form
That's
of
very expensive.
harassment, right? Now what they do is they discredit you.
Right.
Okay, they discredit
it's much
people,
cheaper
and it's much cheaper exactly. And it's easily disseminated out into the public, so that you do have people who are like the Trader Joe's employees, or anyone who's out in the public. You just give them some phrases and some words to use to repeat as necessary, and find a way to discredit you as a conspiracy theorist, or as a you just want your freedom,
right?
Things like that don't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense.
But it works as a means of bringing you down a notch,
right?
Because you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are against you, and it really makes it hard to continue what you're doing, and that's the whole point of it, right? They wear you down.
I want to add something to that's kind of on the flip side, but it means the same thing. Let's go back to the Rescue Act, where there's this language about gun control, and what I'm seeing a lot on Twitter and somewhat on Facebook, and in general, even in my neighborhood, I hear rumors of people saying, "Oh my God, they're coming for our guns! They're coming for our guns! Oh no, they're coming for our guns!" Hey, thanks for joining. Oh, hi Hubs, thanks for joining. So they're not coming for the guns. You know why?
Pablo Turner, yeah.
You know why they're not coming for the guns?
Pablo Turner, nice to see you.
They're not coming for the guns because there's no money in the guns. But you know where they are coming for? They are coming for you, and they're going to use the language of gun control to get into your mental health, so that they can use you to make a buck. Because it's like, oh great, we've just taken everybody's guns. What are we going to do with all these guns? We already have plenty of guns. There's no money in guns, but there is money in forcing you to sign up for wraparound services where you have to go meet with a counselor once a week, or they have to prescribe medication for you, or they need you to go to a group therapy for, somebody who's obsessed with guns or gun violence or whatever. And there's all sorts of money in the wraparound services for mental health. There's no money in guns. So even though the gun control language is in the Rescue Act, it's not about martial law. It's not about violating posse comitatus. Posse comitatus is the is the act, it's the law that says that your military, or that your local police may not act as military against the United States citizens. It's not about violating posse comitatus or bringing in martial law. What it really is about is using the language of gun control to get in under the radar, to focus on your mental health, to have you sign up for wraparound services, which are government backed, so that those services can keep, signing off on paperwork that says, look at all these mental health people we have now. We really need the funding.
Impact investment.
It's about an impact investment. It's about making money. There's actually no money in taking your guns. They're not going to take your guns away. They could care less about your guns. There's no money in that.
Right.
So
exactly.
So
and this this reminds me this talk reminds me of the governor of West Virginia back, I think in around November or whatever. Whenever I think it was November. I think he was pressured politically to put out a mask mandate, because he was one of the last ones to do it.
The governor
of West Virginia. And the governor of West Virginia, he's the kind of guy.
My God.
Okay, first of all, he's the richest man in the state.
Hysterical.
He's the richest man in the state, and he's one of these good old boys. And he's like the kind that would walk into a meeting like, "Let's knock the fuzz off this here peach and get down to business."
Right. So that's the kind of language he uses.
Right.
And he literally addressed all of West Virginia. So West Virginia, I think, is like the second poorest state in the country.
Right.
He literally addressed his entire state. The governor of West Virginia said, just fucking put on a mask. Just follow the goddamn rules and put on a fucking mask.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it was hilarious.
He was talking to the businesses, and he's like, just fucking follow the rules. And you can
Just
look this up.
fucking follow the rules.
And now when he was talking about the mask, he's like, now look, these, it's no big deal to put on these egg-sucking masks. and then he goes on to say, what was it? These egg-sucking masks. But you can just look that up. It's just
egg-sucking masks.
Right. He's like,
hey, look, we got somebody from West Virginia.
Awesome.
West Virginia, signing in. Hi,
awesome.
Adam.
Hi.
Welcome to the.
We actually have visited your state. It's very beautiful. It's a more beautiful state than Pennsylvania.
Oh my God,
and,
it's lovely.
It
it's
is
poor.
lovely. Yeah.
It's poor. There's
Yeah.
a lot of poor. Poverty
we
there.
were watching this video from the West Virginia governor, and he says egg sucking masks, and then he's like, now look, this isn't about, this is just masks. It's not about, they're not out to take your guns. They're not out to and he addressed all the people that were saying that what this is, and he was addressing the conspiracy theorists basically, who were saying, no, this is about a takeover. They're going to take our guns. They're going to take this. They're going to take that. And he's like, no, that's not what this is about. Just put on an egg-sucking mask. So, yeah.
Look
those up.
Hilarious.
He is hilarious.
His
Go
name
look
is Jim
up
Justice.
Jim Justice.
Talk to Adam. He knows.
Right. Yeah. So look those up on YouTube. They're pretty entertaining. So.
So the last thing we want to talk about is.
Well, not the very last thing. But regarding censorship.
Regarding censorship, that we wanted to talk about was all these people that have been taken down off of Patreon, and let's focus on Whitney Webb for a minute.
Because after our rant yesterday, we kind of wanted to come circle back.
Yeah, we kind of want
to. Julie talked about it this morning too.
So we want to circle back to that.
Circle back.
So
Can we circle back?
Can we circle back to
Let's
this
circle
tomorrow?
back on
Maybe
this.
we shouldn't circle back to this
Well,
today.
I think
Maybe
that
we should circle back to it tomorrow.
Well, I don't know.
No, I think we should circle back to it
Circle
today.
back to this right now, Julie.
Okay, let's circle back to censorship. All right, so and my eyes are watering. Too much alcohol, JP, trying to get me drunk.
Yeah.
All right, so the so Whitney Webb was taken down off of Patreon, and it's a very, very simple story. I did a little investigating. I actually did an audio about it this morning to talk about it, but for those of you who didn't catch the audio, there's a guy by the name of Jeffrey something or other. I forget his name, but his last name. But he co-wrote an article with Whitney Webb, and Patreon said, look, if you take down this particular article that you co-wrote with this dude, we will reinstate your Patreon account. And she said, as she should, she said, no, I stand by my work and I stand by my co-author, so no. And so Patreon was like, well, we can't reinstate you then, because that was the agreement. That was sort of the bargaining chip, right? Well, the guy, just so you know, the guy is kind of controversial. He also is a co-author for RT. So he works with the RT network, which we love RT. One of our favorite writers writes for RT. Her name is Helen. You should follow her. You should read her writing. Helen of Destroy. She's great. She's got, when she does her podcast, she uses, doll heads in the background. She lives in New York. She's great. Okay, she often goes on a podcast with Harry Vox and
they drink. We were
and
trying to live up to that. We're more genteel.
Woo! Yeah,
they drink out of a bottle of wine.
They pass a bottle of wine. So you should follow their podcast. It's pretty funny. If you can handle Harry, he's quite a lot to handle. But anyway, the point about Whitney Webb is that she had this article which she co-authored with this guy, Jeffrey something or other. And Jeffrey also he co-authors work for RT. So he works with other writers on the RT platform and co-authors with them. But I think more importantly, and one of the reasons Patreon really wanted to back away from him, it was him. It wasn't her. It was him that they wanted to back away from. It's the fact that he also writes for the Children's Defense Fund or whatever, which is the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. platform that talks about the dangers of vaccine, and they have a fund going for vaccine injured children specifically. So he writes for that organization, for RFK's organization. Now, from a marketing perspective and from a media perspective, RFK is an incredibly polarizing individual for so many
We
reasons.
even have issues with him.
Yeah, so the number one issue that so many people have with him is his commitment to the dangers
Children's health defense,
of vaccines and children's health defense, right? So he is, so that makes him a polarizing character, because you have, one side of the population going vaccine good, all my children are vaccinated, everything's fine, and you have another side of the population going, no, 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 there's too many vaccine injuries, the billions of dollars that have been paid out, come on, wake up. So he's a very polarizing person. And this Jeffrey person who wrote this article with Whitney Webb is very close to RFK. He writes for their platform.
Right.
So Patreon was like, look, we exist for artists. We don't exist for podcasters or broadcasters.
And even if they do have podcasters, they're basically relying on their community standards. And just like standing behind that, and that's that's bullshit.
So I mean, they shouldn't be censoring anyone, whatever. But I got to tell you that this dude Jeffrey, who wrote this article with Whitney Webb, his affiliation with RFK made Patreon go, eesh. Like, we don't want to be around. We don't want to be like 3 degrees of separation away from this incredibly polarizing character that has literally said out loud, I personally am going to take on Bill Gates. I mean, that's what RFK is basically there for. He is there to take down Bill Gates. So you've got RFK versus Bill Gates, and it's just this incredibly polarizing, person. So Patreon was like, look, we were originally designed for artists who were having a hard time breaking into the field. They all have these, great backgrounds in animation. They all want to get jobs at Pixar and Skywalker Studios.
That aside, I mean, it's musicians, writers,
and writers and visual artists.
Yeah.
It's an artist community. So a lot of these artists in the Bay Area and in San Francisco specifically were having a hard time breaking into their career. So Patreon formed. A couple of tech bros got together and said, let's create a platform for artists to sell their own work at an affordable rate, and that way they can continue to curate their art and they can continue to work on it, feel good about it, get a little money for it, share it, on a platform where a future employer could easily go and see the work they do. And then Patreon expanded a little and said, well, let's bring in bloggers and commenters and writers and people who would want to critique art and want to critique culture and critique like animation in a technical way, or critique movies or whatever. That's where you get like Lindsay Ellis. You should look her up. She's a liberal, but she's really funny, and she's one of the highest earners on Patreon. She is a critique of the media industry. She critiques
especially pop culture
and things like that.
Movies, TV shows.
So when they opened up the blogging community on Patreon, that's who they were targeting, were people who liked to critique movies. But then you've got Last American Vagabond, Whitney Webb, and James Corbett that came, creeping into the scene and kind of, used Patreon for their thing. And Patreon's like, well, okay,
they make money, Yeah.
You bring in money and you bring in, popularity to our platform.
Yeah, they probably
are. But you're not really like artists. But you had Last American Vagabond, who had like a lot of people from Silicon Valley like supporting him, right? So what was that?
Just started watching Streets of San Francisco.
Okay. Anyway,
the chase scenes are in different parts of town.
Right, it's in different parts of town. So okay, you're totally getting me off base.
Okay, sorry.
Right, so let's finish with this thing about censorship and Patreon and Whitney Webb. Okay, so Patreon was like this. Look, not only are you not an artist, and not only do you not critique movies and wear funny costumes, you are a blogger who critiques the state and critiques corporate intervention and critiques Jeffrey Epstein and all that bullshit. And that makes us feel uncomfortable to begin with. But now you want to bring in this polarizing character that has completely, like, split the country in half. Please, Whitney, work with us. You know, we're not trying to, like, censor you.
Well,
we just
yes, they are, Julie. Yes, they
I know,
are.
I'm like pro Patreon, and he's like pro.
But
like,
at the same time, this morning you did your thing, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't agree with you on that point.
I know.
And she's like, well, no, what I'm trying to do is take this, like
it's from a marketing perspective.
You know, show the perspective of them, blah blah blah. I don't believe in that. Well, she didn't say that, and I think that's why I wanted to bring this up, because you just like rehashed our last two podcasts about this very subject, and I'm kind of tired of talking about it. But what I want to say is that, you know, we don't agree. We don't agree.
Oh, what? Oops. Oh, hi. Undefined. Hi, JB. Thank you for the $4.99.
Thank you.
I thought we took money.
We did.
I thought we unmonetized our.
Well, that's Facebook. Oh, no,
oh, that's YouTube. I thought we unmonetized YouTube.
No. All right. Well, there he goes. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you, JB.
Michael Douglas, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
yeah,
so
I thought we weren't, gonna.
So what I wanted to say was that we don't agree with Patreon's actions at all. It's just that she wanted to point out where they were coming from in her piece this morning, and I think that them holding her hostage, her Patreon account hostage, for a piece that she wrote is really uncool. It's not good. I have to say, she has negotiation power because of the income that she brings in. I think they were willing to work with her, okay, even though they made this ridiculous demand. We had a similar situation on Vimeo where a couple of our videos got taken down. A couple of our best videos, I think Lifelong Learning was taken down, and maybe even Foreign Tyranny was taken down off of Vimeo. And that's why we dedicated communitarianism to them, because they were being very communitarian about it. Vimeo took down our videos and said, well, it's community standards, and it's because of these reasons. And I looked at their reasons, and I'm like, that doesn't even apply to this video. None of that content that you just cited as reasons for taking down our video are in our video, and I told them so, and I was basically talking to a bot, because they were just basically like, nope. And by email, it's worse. If you talk to them on Twitter, you get a response.
So check this out, JP. You don't know this, but Whitney Webb posted she posted the letter from Patreon that said, look, just take down this one article and we'll reinstate your account. Love Brianna or whatever, or whatever the
Brian, or it wasn't Brian.
No, it was a woman's name. It was like Brianna, but it was spelled like the total,
really weird way.
The total San Francisco way, like BRIYAUN.
With a heart.
It was like a little heart. Like, so it was a total bot. It wasn't real. But anyway, poor Whitney.
Yeah.
But the point is that, look, I understand where JP's coming from. Maybe people can also understand where I'm coming from. The fact is I don't want to be like, oh, poor Patreon. But yeah, I mean,
your whole thing is that they were made for artists.
They were made for artists, not for
So
interesting and ridiculous. It's like they weren't made for that.
There's two other platforms for that very thing, and Whitney Webb is on.
She's
what's that thing? Rockfin, which
she makes tons of bank.
Rockfin doesn't even talk to us, and then here's another situation where Rockfin is about podcasters and news people and sports. They don't want a couple of artists, right? So they don't even talk to us. We apply. We've applied 3 times. We never hear back from them.
Yeah.
So those of you who have been asking us to go on Rockfin, we're not.
We tried.
We tried. We can't do it. It's
They're not
that we don't want to.
interested in art. They're like, why would we host you?
Right.
We're not about art. Patreon is about creativity and art.
Right. So, if we have to, we'll run over to those other platforms if if it comes to that. But so far, we're doing fine with Patreon. Okay, enough of that.
I mean, we're not doing fine. We need more patrons.
Well, we do. Yeah, okay. What I'm trying to say is they haven't warned us or given us any warnings. But yeah, okay. So ad. We do need your support. we have a few patrons, and we're getting close to about what? Halfway?
We're less than halfway.
We're about 45% on our
goal.
way to our goal.
Yes.
We would like to make that goal, okay? Okay, I'm stumbling over things. So basically, we're looking for you, and I said this much better last night. We're looking for you to help us out, to create the content that you enjoy. Even a $2 a month, $1 a month patronage does really help, because it's regular money that comes in that we can, count on, and it goes directly into our bank account. They take a little cut, of course, but it goes into our bank account, and we can count on that to pay our bills. Okay, so what we're looking to do is to get enough patronage coming in to where we can devote 100% of our time, of our workday time, to presenting or creating and presenting the videos and the video work, and expanding from there the kind of artwork that you enjoy. So one of the things that Julie's providing for our patrons is she's been writing a story that's a post-COVID, like maybe 10 years from now, kind of science fiction-y, post-COVID kind of story that's pretty fun. She updates it once a month. So far I think she has like 3 or 4 entries. Okay, so these are the kinds of things that you can find on Patreon as a result of subscribing and becoming a patron. Now, the other thing too is that we have now started putting our long form video essays on Patreon, available for patrons only. Now, the shorter video sketchbooks do go out to the public, but they sit on Patreon about a week before we present them to the public. Okay,
it's
doctor.
Rude. It's rude to eat on camera.
Okay, Lee Dundas.
I know, right?
So what we do is we make content available to our patrons first, and you get to see things a week before the public does. And in the case of the long form video essays, like the what is it called? The new model series. Okay, we put out several months of the new model series for free out to our public. Now they're only being available on Patreon. So if you join Patreon and become a patron of Book of Hours, you have access to our long form videos. Okay, that said, if you would like to give us a donation, you can go to paypal.me/Book of Hours. So you can give us a one-time donation. Or you can become a patron at a monthly rate of at least $2 a month. And like I said before, I mean, these things make a difference. Okay, commercial over. Let's move on to the next thing.
I know, right? Come on now.
I feel like an NPR
We only
station.
have 2 hours. Jeez. Way to suck the energy out of the room.
Well,
No, I'm kidding.
You know what? That was done right at the top of the hour.
Ooh, that's good.
In the middle. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about is leave the liberals. You can't save them. So but this doesn't just apply to like liberals, but it just seems like liberals
Right.
are the only ones that are cheering on this fascism, right?
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah.
the point is I feel like, the people who are not liberal are like, yeah, don't tell me what to do. And the anarchists who are like the real left are like, yeah, don't ever tell me what to do.
Right. Well, okay, so we're fighting with our own comrades who are basically following the liberals and doing, following the rules and like supporting the state, which is something I would never expect. Bring them on camera.
What?
Bring what on camera?
Wait, what?
Robin is saying bring them on camera. Oh, I see. No, that's a statement from
Oh, it's okay, Grandpa.
Oh,
he doesn't know what he's looking at.
What am I looking at? Oh. Yeah. Okay. So
what did she say?
She said.
Somebody's watching.
She's watching,
Hello.
and then it said, so and so is watching. Bring them on camera, and I'm like, well, what are they? Who's asking that?
No,
okay.
that's
Sorry.
That's something else. That's something different.
I just don't understand these newfangled
All right,
technologies.
so let's go back to you can't save them.
Okay.
So there's a lot of this, over the last year, this kind of like, stop putting on the mask, don't take the vaccine, let me save you. This kind of language is grown and really escalated.
Yeah.
And I think where it's coming from, I can totally understand where that intensity and that emotion is coming from, because it's basically like this: if you do these things, then you're going to bring me into your own psychosis, and I don't want to be a part of your your psychotic episode and your breakdown. I don't want to be a part of it. So that's where this desperate plea to get the liberals to stop acting like idiots.
Well, I think also that a lot of people,
fascist apologists,
are acting from common sense and logic. It's like, no, please listen to reason. Listen to the what we have to say. It's scientifically impossible to blah 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 blah, and that's all they hear, right?
Yeah.
And this is what the same people that you're trying to convince used to be saying to like say, this is the complaint they used to have, right? But now that they're in the majority, now that they have the power, they don't give a flying what.
Right.
And so trying to convince them is just it's impossible, and it's not worth your energy.
Right.
So it's time to move on.
Right. It is really time to move on. What I really wanted to do though was I want to go back to like 9/11. So 9/11 was this event that took place that allowed the sort of the Richard Grannons and the Sam Vaknins. These are sort of these alternative to your Rockefeller-backed therapy or Rockefeller-backed psychology or psychiatry. These are the people that are like they really popularized during 9/11 when you had families that were really splintering. You had the son saying, wait a minute, 9/11 was an inside job, and you had the father who's from a different generation saying, no, it was the brown people. And you had like this breakdown in your families. But at the end of the day, you could still, your mom, who's obviously with dad, would still call up the kid who's like the 9/11 truther and say, so you coming over for Christmas this year? You coming over for Hanukkah? You coming over for blah, blah, blah. Okay, and it would still happen. And so they could still come together. What's happening in the age of COVID is that is a further splintering. So the 9/11 truthers, so to speak, are also the COVID truthers, so to speak. They're the ones that are like us, like, wait a minute, this doesn't pass the sniff test, nothing about this is right. But their families are like, look, if you want to come over for Thanksgiving dinner or for Christmas, you have to take a test and prove that you're negative, or you need to get the vaccine, or you need to wear a mask, until we serve the food, or any other bullshit. And so that has escalated this breakdown in the family and this breakdown in these relationships, which started during 9/11. And this is just me speculating. Once again, I'm just doing like an armchair analysis of these things. During that time, you had during 9/11, you had like a rise in popularity of these people that were like, you are the designated scapegoat of your family. This thing that you're experiencing about like having this argument with your family or your friends about like what 9/11 is really about, it's not really about 9/11. It's about the fact that you're the designated scapegoat in the family, or you're the designated, golden child or whatever that's fallen from his rank. And now you've gone from golden child to scapegoat. And it opened up a dialogue. It opened up this interesting dialogue about family hierarchy and family dynamics, and not just with the family, but also with friends and
in the workplace.
Yeah. And even in churches and in communities, where you had the splintering off of those who believed, let's just go along to get along and do the right thing and think the right way, so that we can still be favored, whether that favoritism comes in the family or whether it comes in the job, place or in the community. So it's not really about 9/11 itself. It's really about your position in the family. And you had these really popular sort of guru types, like the Richard Grannons and the Sam Vaknins and the Merediths, who she runs a platform called Inner Integration. And she recently hosted a psychologist by the name of Mark McDonald, who I think Josette shared one of his videos today as well. I don't agree with everything he says, but I do agree with his psychological analysis of what's going on right now, which is a mass psychosis, a mass psychotic episode where these people who are wearing the mask, who are talking about getting the vaccine and are following all the rules, they are in the throes of a psychotic episode. They're having a psychotic breakdown. They belong in insane asylums. They belong in mental institutions, or at the very least, they belong in therapy. And that's the way I've looked at it from day one as well. Mm-hmm. The difference between this sort of eruption of this discovery, which we all discovered through 9/11, or many people discovered through 9/11, that they were different from their family. The difference between like the 9/11 discovery and the discovery now is that there was no violence imposed on you for believing what you believed during the time of 9/11. You were still able to go and have Thanksgiving dinner with your family, or go do outings with your friends, or go out with your coworkers with no problem. But now you are forced to wear a mask, which is a complete violation of your sovereign will. Now you're possibly have to get a test to prove that you're negative for COVID. It's become, it's escalated.
Right.
And 9/11 and what 9/11 brought about, it wasn't really about, brown people crashing into buildings. What it really was about was the splintering, the breakdown of society, and especially families. So we're in this really dangerous place right now where people who are really fragile and trying to hold on to the remnants of their belief systems are being kicked to the curb by their own families.
Right. And, Julie and I have experienced this, before COVID, post 9/11. I didn't really have an issue with my family with 9/11 because we never talked about that stuff, and I had always had a distant relationship with my family, so it was never really a big deal. But in fact, when I would talk politics with my father, he would always be surprised at what I was saying, and kind of he said he was impressed. I don't know how true that was, but it would often change his thinking, I think, a lot of times, which was good, but the fact that we never really talked was not good. So we'd only talk at certain periods of time. But so what Julie is saying is, this moment was a splintering of the society. That moment at I think that 20 years ago, 9/11 was a moment that basically set us up for where we are now, in the splintering of society, the splintering of families, getting people to ostracize others over a particular topic. It certainly was a moment that allowed the liberal classes, like we were talking before, to once again support a war, where in the past they may not have done that, because the same people were opposing a war on Iraq 20 years before that, right? Or 10, 15 years before that. I forget the dates, but maybe about 10 years ago. 10, 12 years before, right? The first Iraq war, right? So they were all opposed to that, but then when it came back around after 9/11, everybody was on board with kicking ass in Iraq. Everybody was fine with going to Afghanistan, and everybody was fine once their hero Obama went from what 2 or 3 wars to 5
To 7.
to 7,
Yeah.
you know, and ended up like using so many bombs that he ran out of bombs, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating, and I think that you know, this is sort of on our list too, but
Yeah.
but I'll just say it now that, you know, the liberal classes always allow fascism to come in through their acceptance of opposite opinions. Now, we were talking about censorship and free speech earlier. Now, you know, there are certain things that I'm really opposed to having, giving people access to say, and you know, these are very polarizing things. I won't get into it too much, but you know, sites or what video things like what is that, the Cambridge Forum, where they have people talk.
Oh, Oxford?
Oxford.
Yeah.
What is it called? Oxford.
I forget.
No,
but
okay.
We used to subscribe
Yeah, we used to
that.
watch that.
And they have an open forum where they will talk.
Right.
You know.
And like even Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania talked there. But I mean, I swear to God, they would probably welcome Hitler in.
Yeah. Yeah.
To come in and talk.
Right.
And talk about, you know,
They would.
his position, and it's
And they'd be
that
like, oh,
act.
that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's that very act that allows that sort of fascist speech, that speech about, you know, taking
Oxford
down another.
Union.
Oxford Union, yeah.
Yeah.
To slip in there and change the conversation, and suddenly make it so that those people over there, the ones that I'm talking about, they're diseased, and you have to make them go away.
Right.
Okay. So this is the kind of thing that the liberal classes will always, because they embrace, you know, fairness, and they come at it. They come at it with the idea that all speech is equal, right? Where they don't think of somebody having an agenda that would possibly undermine the very society that they live in. Now, what we're seeing today is a weird mashup of all those things, where it's like, on one hand, they're letting the fascism come in, but on the other hand, they're saying, no hate speech, no hate speech, no hate speech, right? And so it's... And yet...
That's all we get.
You know, that's all we get, and all we get is fascism. So it's been a real fucked up year, and it's been a very fucked up kind of situation. I'm sorry, I'm holding the...
No, it's okay.
thing.
It has been a really fucked up year. You know, that's basically
Right.
the theme of this right now is, you know, that it's been a really fucked up year.
And things are so multi-layered that there is no easy... Sorry, I have a cherry in my mouth. There is no easy explanation of what's going on. And so anytime that somebody says, it's this, it's that, it's something else, all three of those things could be right. Okay? There is no one thing that's going on, and we're going to kind of get into that in a little bit in our discussion.
Well, let's see.
Cognitive dissonance? Well, okay, so we don't have to cover that, but something that I would want to mention.
Oh, Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that real quick? Or?
Well, I think everybody knows what Stockholm Syndrome is. Stockholm Syndrome is where you love your oppressors, you love your abusers. Your abusers have abused you so much that you become attached to them somehow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah. The kids. So Julie was talking to our neighbors, and woman across the street has a little boy. She saw them waiting for the school bus. Mr. Bob was about to pick him up.
He loves his mask.
He loves his mask. He will not take it off.
He loves it.
And I've been seeing the little kids around this town as I'm driving back from my route, and seeing the kids wearing their mask, and the parent kind of sitting there going without a mask on, and their kids wearing them. Right. And in the past I was like, those stupid parents.
No, it's not the parents, it's the school.
It's the school, right? And the parents are like, I can't get them to take it off, right? Now, the other day, some joy filled my heart because I saw some kids waiting for their school bus. They didn't have their mask on. And they were waiting for the bus to show up before they got out. The signs, the bus, because I drive a school van, they make you put a sign inside the van or the bus that says masks are required. And I gave my kids the choice. So I said, in this bus, you do not have to wear a mask if you do not want to.
Right.
Of the children, half of them wear masks and will not take them off, and the other half don't wear them on board. So, that's I gave them the choice, right? So that's what's going on out there.
Right.
Now, I wanted to talk about those signs that you've been seeing around probably since the last election, since post 2016 election. And they are usually black placards or, whatever. And they have different lines on them, and each line is in a different color and possibly a different font. And they say, "We believe, Black Lives Matter, that, women's rights are human rights." That
Do we have it?
Blah, blah, blah,
Can we
blah,
look
blah.
it up online?
Well, so you can go to signsofjustice.com. They produce them.
That's right. There's a company, you guys, that actually makes these things.
Right. And, and I've been seeing them along this one. Oh, you can't.
Can you see?
You can't even see it. You can't see it. It's too bright. It's too
Sorry.
bright. Sorry.
Signsofjustice.com. Here, let
just
me
go
type
there.
it in the comment.
So I've been seeing this. I've been driving along the more through the wealthier neighborhoods of the suburbs of Pittsburgh on my way back to our opportunity zone from where I drop off the kids that I take. And I've been seeing a series of houses that have these signs up, okay? And I'm like, where the fuck do these come from? I started seeing them in San Francisco before we moved to Pittsburgh. And I, blew them off back then because I thought they were just really disingenuous, okay? That's how I feel about them. I think they're very disingenuous. I think that they take a very surface level approach to topics that are far more complex, and they really always bugged me. And I couldn't really, at the time, put my finger on it, but I was always like, this is really annoying. And so finally I kind of started looking them up. That's how I found the Signs of Justice website. And I hate those stupid signs. And yes,
oh my God,
and they are in the
so
wealthy
awful.
neighborhoods. Yeah, exactly, Lucy Cat. They are always in the wealthy liberal neighborhoods, right?
Okay. We got,
Did we get a new patron?
well, not a new patron.
Oh, we got an update.
We got an update.
Thank you. Error ASMR.
Error
Thank you.
ASMR updated
Thank
her
you.
pledge to $2. She was at $1. See, we're not trying to break the bank, you guys. We're not trying to make it so that you can't live $1 a month, $2 a month.
Yeah,
That's,
thank you.
I
found an article on Independent Women's Forum. It seems like it's a more conservative, feminist kind of site. I don't know. I didn't look around it too much, but
conservative feminist?
Yeah.
Wait, that's like an oxymoron.
Well,
How is that possible?
Well, pro female, political, but more conservative. Probably, they're against progressive liberals for one.
Oh, really?
I could tell, yeah.
So am I. So.
Well, yeah, me too, right?
I'm all
But
for it.
I'm like further to the left than the progressive liberals. But I can agree with people on the right because of what's going on.
The
right?
enemy of my enemy is my ally.
Exactly. So
that pretty much defines
and
COVID
I'm just going to read
too, right?
read a couple sentences from this article that I found. It was called "Your Social Justice Yard Sign Contributes to Division, Not Discourse." Okay?
What? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The
Oh my
signs
God.
give cheap, cursory treatment to a series of serious issues and imply that only one worldview is acceptable. The signs suggest that outside of homes displaying them, hatred and bigotry are the norm, and only hatred and bigotry can explain any departure from the sign's political creed.
That's
And
not true.
No, that's true. That's,
What?
What?
Hatred and bigotry are not the norm.
Well, right. That's what she's saying here.
Oh, okay.
The author is saying outside. So the sign suggests
Oh,
outside of the home displaying the sign that hatred and bigotry are the norm, and that only hatred and bigotry can explain any departure from the sign's political creed. And these are some of the things that I've been thinking about. But I loved how this author just kind of summed it up really quickly. Then, platitudes don't change hearts or minds.
Right, platitudes.
Yard signs don't change hearts or minds. And shouting at passersby in all caps, because these signs are all in caps, and that's shouting.
Yeah. Whenever it's in all caps, it's shouting, guys.
Yeah, even in multicolored font. Which is a really bad design, because coming from a graphic design perspective, that's really just different fonts, different colors. It's like, yeah, okay. Anyway, it undermines the message of inclusivity and altruism, which they think their sign is sending. If you really believe that kindness is everything and want to show that hate has no home at your address, and if you really want to contribute to a better neighborhood, public square, and country, please take down your sign.
What?
Instead, get to know your neighbors and engage in respectful dialogue, which I agree with, right? The signs are bullshit. The signs are shouting at people saying, this is what we believe, and you better believe what we believe, or else we're going to go communitarianism on you. Right?
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it was
Bad
a good.
news.
So I found that on the Independent Women's Forum. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess you're a closet feminist.
I guess, or a closeted conservative. I don't know which.
Closet conservative.
Okay, so
Yeah, right, whatever.
So now we're getting into, speaking of the liberal class, and speaking of people trying to be inclusive by excluding you, okay, and telling you what to think.
Oh my God! Right?
What we
that happens.
Right? We've been saying for a little while. Julie just wrote a piece the other day, put it on our blog. That's book-of-hours.com/blog. This is a piece called Total War. What was it called? You've got it over there. I can't see it.
It's called
1 year.
1 year of total madness.
Yeah. Okay. So she's talking about total war. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We just listened to an interview today on what is it? Empire and
Geopolitics and Empire.
Geopolitics and Empire. That's
I like
a good.
that guy.
Yeah, I do too.
He's conservative, but I like him.
I like him too. Yeah. He is a very interesting guy. Good podcast. So check it out on YouTube
He's
or
nice.
other places. Yeah, he's a very nice guy. He interviewed a guy who talked about total war today, and this is something we've been talking about.
Total war.
Yeah, total war. Now, what they mean by total war is that everybody in the society is involved with a war.
On you.
Well, in this case, it's on us, right? It's on the population. But there are people within the population that are waging war on the population, right? And that's what's different about this total war as opposed to what the guy talked about. Oh, Julie. Pat the back. Like saying the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon waged total war. Okay, where everybody at the different levels of society were engaged in that war. Okay, whereas now it's even more widespread because of social media and because of the way people have been enculturated into snitch culture and communitarianism and all these other things combined with social media. It is complete and utter total war.
Yeah.
Okay. And
so it goes back to what we had talked about before, where you need the proxy armies to do the bidding of the establishment or do the bidding of COVID or the COVID.
Right, and
the COVID psyop.
Right, and so manipulation is part of that, right?
Right.
And shame and pressure from groups towards individuals. And again, it's coming back to what we were talking about with the Whitney Webb and Patreon situation, where Patreon is saying, take down that one article and you can have your account back.
Right.
Okay, that is part of this kind of total war approach. It's like,
It's bad, you
what we're
guys.
talking about with
It's
Vimeo
bad.
taking down our videos. There was nothing in our videos that they said were in our videos, and yet they took them down anyway. And
You can just say whatever you want. It doesn't
that-
have to be
and-
true.
well,
is
not
what
only
we're
that,
saying.
it does. Yeah, exactly. It's because we're taking it down because we say so.
Right.
COVID exists because we say so. The world is dying because we say so.
Right.
Okay.
Wear a mask because we say so.
Right.
Get a vaccine because we say so. Shut down your business because we say so.
Right, exactly.
Like kill your economy, kill your life, kill your autonomy because we say so.
And then we're talking about, we've been talking about these people that now have taken up this mantle, your middle management, your store managers, your Trader Joe's employees, the guy that bags your groceries at the Giant Eagle.
Let me read this.
Let's get to that in a second. That's up next. These are the people who are part of that total war that is being waged on you through psychological manipulation, through physical abuse, through mental abuse, through epithets and the video that I put out called Traitor Joe's showed a scene where a guy was in a store. I don't remember the name of it. It wasn't a Trader Joe's, but a group of people surrounded him because he wasn't wearing a mask. They chased him out of the store, and the store manager threw his shoe at the guy as he was walking away. What the fuck?
Yeah, well,
to
and then
quote Austin Powers, who throws a shoe?
Who throws a shoe? Like, okay,
Right?
so I've lost my words.
I'm so sorry.
Like society is being used as the proxy army to
Yeah.
wage total war. So, there's Cold War tactics, which has a lot to do with propaganda, okay? But this is more than just propaganda war
Right.
and Cold War tactics and accusing people of being, spies for the enemy, which is typical Cold War tactics. Total war is like your school teacher is forcing your child to put on a mask.
And social distance.
That is total war. That is going after the innocent. That is abusing children. That's something that you would hear about in, the rumors that you would hear that were going on in, these Middle Eastern countries where there was, what's the type of schooling that they would do there that was considered?
The Islamic schools. The madrones.
jihadists,
they were called. I want to say madrones, but that's not
Yeah.
it. But anyway,
But the point is that you hear about these things, and so is a lot of Americans are like, we have to go and invade those countries to save those people because they are being, indoctrinated into violence against themselves, into these people committing violence on the children. So we need to go save them for the children's sake and all this stuff. That's happening to us right now.
It is.
That's happening to us right now, this very minute, here in this country.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying under a national emergency, everything can be suspended. Your school teacher that you love is able to wage violence, is able to legally wage violence on your child. Look, and then there's a whole subsection of this, which is what Alison McDowell talks about, which is all about money.
Human
It's
capital
all
markets.
about human capital markets and transitioning out of capitalism into a new, monstrous form of capitalism, which is really just slavery.
Right.
Which is basically your body is used until it dies for someone else's benefit, and you don't get anything from that. It's a concept a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their heads around, but luckily more and more people are waking up. But you can only get there through something called total war. Total war. It's more than just invading a country and taking their gold or taking their oil or taking their resources. It's total war. breaking apart families. It's telling the cashier that he has the right to impose violence on you. It's total war. Like
Right.
I don't know what else to say.
Well,
I don't
it's a complete thing. But Julie, we found we got a message from our local
Right.
CDC.
So
now, not the CDC, the
no,
Center for Disease
not
Control.
the Center for Disease Control. So there's something called a community development center, and in the local the local language, it's they just call it the local CDC.
Right.
So it's a community development center.
Right, and this is this is a type of organization that is recognized by the Small Business Administration.
Right.
And
right.
and and so they are official nonprofits.
They're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're part of the third sector. Okay.
So we were really excited to see that they had sent over a message to everybody, and they have something called Canopy Conversations, and they said, come over and talk. Let's get together. Let me read this to you because it sounds so nice, right?
Once again, it's framed in progressive feel-good language.
Right.
But the hidden message is in there.
It says, our goal is to encourage neighbors and community members who have been struggling with the isolation of the pandemic to come outside and connect human being to human being on this first day of spring. So it'll be for March 20th, which is the first day of spring. Enjoy coffee and snacks while chatting with us. And then here it is. The bomb dropped on it on the
Thank you, RB.
on the good feeling. While chatting with us in a socially distanced way. The event is from 1 to 3, and it will be held in collaboration. Now here's something else that was really depressing and really scary. The event will be held in collaboration with the October 27 Healing Partnership. Healing Partnership, that sounds good. Healing, Healing, in case you can't understand me. Healing Partnership, a resilience center established after the Tree of Life shooting in 2018. So let me tell you about, first of all, the first thing that was a huge red flag and a huge disappointment was the fact that they were holding out the little carrot and dangling the little carrot in front of us little rabbits, where we were like, ooh, that looks good, because they were saying things like, let's have human to human conversation after an entire year of isolation. That sounds really good. But then they add the caveat right behind it of, in a socially distanced way. Well, then it's not human to human. Then it's fascism. That's all it is. If you're going to sit there and tell me that we can get together human to human, then I'm going to hug you. Then I'm not going to wear a mask and I'm going to behave like a normal human being.
Right.
But if you're going to filter it through fucking COVID and call it a socially distanced, approved way, then fuck you, because that's a violent intervention on my behalf that I do not agree with.
Right.
That's intervention on my behalf. But you see, the language is so cutesy and so soft and nice and lovely. So there's that part of it, which is a huge red flag. And then the second part of it, that is another even more huge red flag, was the fact that they are having this event in collaboration with something called the October 27th Healing Partnership. So JP and I moved to Pittsburgh in August of 2018. Less than 2 months after we had lived here, the synagogue shooting took place, the Tree of Life synagogue shooting. It was the first time in the history of the United States that violence had been waged against a Jewish community. Okay? The first time. And it was just this over-the-top, extreme event. All right? So I did a little digging, of course. Turns out there's all sorts of stuff that went on
beforehand.
They had a complete change of ownership.
Well, not ownership, but
or not
personnel.
ownership, but personnel. They had an FBI drill
6 months prior.
6 months prior to
or
the
8
event.
months prior, yeah.
6 months prior to the event, right at the same location. There were so many things that were just like red flag, red flag, red flag. It was a psychological operation, in my opinion.
And a false flag.
and a false flag. YouTube, please don't. And Facebook, don't shut me down because I said that.
Oops. The FF.
I did a blog piece about it. So in order to have these events take place, you have to create, outside of these events, after these events, you are forced to create what's called resiliency centers. And we did a video called Resilient Cities. And resiliency centers are organizations that target so-called traumatized communities to put them into services that they don't need.
Right.
Force them to be labeled as traumatized people when they're not traumatized at all. It was a total psyop. Like, I read the letter from the rabbi, the original rabbi that had originally been the rabbi for the Tree of Life synagogue, and then I read the follow-up letter for his replacement. There was some serious underhanded shit going down having to do with Israel and
support for Palestinians.
Support for Palestinians versus not support for Palestinians. There's some serious.
It went from a progressive community that supported the rights of Palestinians to being a Netanyahu supporting.
Right, to be totally pro-Netanyahu, fascist, oh my God. So there was a whole political breakdown of this particular synagogue. And then they had an FBI drill, and then they had the big event in October of 2018.
It wasn't just the rabbi that quit.
Everybody quit.
Right. It was the
controller,
the operations officer, the controller, the janitor.
Right. Everybody quit this synagogue.
Right.
Everybody was removed from this synagogue. People who handled the money. It was really weird.
And there was just a complete change of personnel.
Right.
And the community even changed a little bit too, I think.
Right. So in order to make Pittsburgh an even stronger police state and a more fascist city than it already was, they had to have this event in order to incorporate these organizations that are called the Healing Partnership, which is a resiliency center.
So if you haven't seen it, go back to
Resilient Cities.
Resilient Cities, the video Resilient Cities. It's a 6-minute cartoon featuring Tori Evening Star, and we talk about what a resilient city is, and it's basically the opposite of what it seems to be.
Right.
And the CDC that we're talking about here in our own little community gets we use some documents that they had created as examples of what we're
I guess
talking
what
about.
I'm trying to say is that in the age of COVID, this is the kind of thing that you're going to see. The vaccine is not the problem. The problem are these wraparound services. The problem, and if you're worried about your health, if you're worried about having an adverse reaction to toxic chemicals, you might want to look up in the sky, because that's what we're more afraid of than the vaccine, to be honest.
Yeah.
Over here, that's what we're more afraid of. The amount of stratospheric aerosol injections in the sky and the toxic chemicals and the toxic elements that they're spraying on overdrive, I worry about that more than I worry about a vaccine.
So go out and order or go out and buy selenium, right?
Selenium will take care of the metals
The
in
heavy
the body.
metals in the body.
The heavy metals.
Yeah, but
other
other
that'll
toxins,
work
I
to
don't know.
a certain extent.
Stay healthy.
Smart dust, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm trying to say about this event for the Tree of Life, so in order for these wraparound services to exist, in order for the local community development center to put on this cute little event to celebrate the beginning of spring in a socially distanced way. In order for them to do that, they needed an organization that would target a traumatized community. And this organization was fabricated out of nothing, and the trauma comes from nothing. It comes from a false flag event, a psyop event that wasn't even what the media says it is. It's a complete false flag.
Yeah.
And it was all just theater. It was
Yeah,
all
it was
theater.
theater, yeah.
It was all theater.
And then the theater of the people coming out to show solidarity, you know, like there were T-shirts and there were banners and posters.
You know,
and
here's how you know that it's a psyop too. JP and I, you know, learned about it. We went over to the neighborhood where the synagogue is located to go walk around or whatever.
Yeah.
The very next day, or at least
a week later, yeah.
2 days later, or a few days later, there were these professional-looking signs in every window of every shop that had the local football team logo.
So the Steelers
in
logo,
the shape of a Jewish star.
So the Steelers logo are like 3 sort of star shapes, and one of them was a blue 6-pointed star.
Okay, having worked in marketing and knowing what
it takes a long time to come up with that shit.
To print the amount of these kind of posters that we saw in the windows, it takes weeks. Like, you have to order them weeks in advance.
Right, and you can't just design that kind of crap overnight. Like, somebody didn't just sit down in 5 minutes and come up with it.
Right.
This was discussed in meetings. This was gone over. The colors, the fonts, everything was worked on. The phrasing was all had to be created, and it was done by committee. I guarantee you, it was corporate, not some dude in a garage, in his bedroom, coming up with this design and going, "Oh, let's print this out." No, it's not that.
No, it was a very corporate, laminated, perfect, and it was everywhere.
It was everywhere.
Like, everywhere had put it in there.
Yeah.
Everyone
These things were ordered ahead of time.
They were ordered ahead of time before the event. So what this told me and JP in October of 2018, after the synagogue, so-called synagogue shooting and the synagogue event, and I did a blog piece about it as well. What this told us is that something is around the corner. Another psychological operation is around the corner. This is about a huge marketing campaign, and the Tree of Life shooting and the Tree of Life synagogue issue, and then the marketing that came out within days, just days after the so-called shooting or the so-called terrorist event, was so overwhelming and so professional that we were like, okay, something else is around the corner, because this is a practice run for something even bigger. And just, wouldn't you know it, COVID comes, and then within days you've got signs in all of your public transportation depots and on your buses that say, keep it social distance.
Professionally made,
you know,
professionally designed.
Made, professionally designed. Like, you cannot do these things that fast. Okay?
They just don't,
So,
especially when you're social distancing in an office.
So, you know, look for language in events that say, we really want to get together with you. We really miss you. Let's do a face-to-face get-together. Let's have coffee and cake and cookies, and let's get together and have a good time, and let's get through this together, because it's been a year of this. And aren't you sick of this? And come out and enjoy this with us in a socially distanced way. That's a red flag. Don't go. That's fascism, you know? And because I guarantee you it's going to be incorporated with some kind of other wraparound service that has to do with putting you into a place where you are going to be targeted for trauma or some kind of mental health issue. And that's also fascism.
Right.
You know, so it's really important that this is the genesis of the year. It started out with what it started out with, and it's going to end with you being dependent on something that you don't need. It's going to be dependent on you needing some kind of fucking wraparound service or some kind of service that's there to help you with your mental health when you don't have a mental health issue.
Right.
You're fine.
Yeah.
You know?
But they're going to talk to your psychopathic mother that you haven't talked to in 10 years.
Under the Rescue Act, under the Rescue Act legislation, gun control is a cover for mental health accusations.
Right.
It's a cover for that.
Right.
It's serious.
It is.
People need to take it seriously.
Okay. So this is all part of total war that's taking place. Now, with that in mind, along the same lines of what we've been talking about, and that same podcast that we were talking about earlier on geopolitics and empire. The same guest talked about. He said something that the world is in flux, and that's something that Julie and I have been talking about together. If it not on our bookmark shows, that the world is in flux. There is no one thing that's taking place. There is no one group that's in power or is causing one thing or another. People have been talking about the World Economic Forum, and we have been as well. Certainly, the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution is the theme of our new model series. Okay? Now, they are having a lot of influence in the world today, but certainly do not have the capacity and the power right now to pull off what they are proposing.
They're not that bright.
Well, not only that, but even though these are billionaires and the corporations that are pushing this forward, they are one agenda of many that are going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
And all of this is in flux, and the dynamics of each one intersects and repels off the other. And so we really cannot say, and I'm glad that Alison McDowell has been coming out and saying, this is what these people want. Now, whether it actually happens or not remains to be seen.
Right.
And that's something that I was glad to hear her say, because I've been thinking the same way.
Right.
Now, a few points that he brought up and that I then took to the next thought. So the COVID thing, okay, the national emergency and the COVID lockdowns all over the world have allowed for, it's been a cover for the power grabs that are taking place in the background. So whether it's the World Economic Forum or things that are going on in the United States with the liberal Democratic Party people, the Democratic governors, and this power grab that took place in the U.S. elections this past year, all these things are taking place under the cover of the COVID thing, and some of those things are the central banks, for instance, are now, they right from the beginning, and we call this out, the central banks started issuing debt. In fact, on our Traitor Joe's video, I cut out a part where the woman who comes up to us and says, well, you don't have to load up your groceries here, and we don't appreciate you complaining about this on out in front of our store. And I'm thinking, what? And I'm like, you don't have to say it to us. She's like, don't you know what's going on? And I said, yeah, total fascism. And Julie said too, but then Julie says, the central banks are taking over and they're issuing credit or debt and they're doing this and blah 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 blah. And it was this big long thing, and she's like, are you kidding me?
I'm like, it's a central bank takeover.
I edited that out because it was just too long, and it was like
too much.
It was too much. But that's what was we were very well aware of what was going on at the beginning. The central banks have been issuing debt all around the world and trying to centralize and consolidate their power, right? So you got that. Then there's that. Then the corporations and the billionaires, right? Okay, through the World Economic Forum, and through trying to push their AI software and all their initiatives in concert with the UN and all these things. So that group of people are trying to gain control and force global governance on us. Okay.
Yeah.
This gentleman suggested that the British Empire is now re-emerging. And a lot of people have been talking about the Five Eyes and have noticed how Australia and Britain and Northern Ireland too, New Zealand, and Canada, all have been undergoing very similar types of draconian lockdown practices and masking and all the things that are going on. And they're all doing it at the same time. He suggested that the British Empire is re-emerging, and these particular countries that were part or are part of the Commonwealth are part of the Commonwealth, once were part of the empire, are coming together because they have similar cultures, similar laws, similar ways of doing things, similar practices within their what do you call it? Their intelligence groups. Okay, that's the Five Eyes refers to the intelligence. So he was suggesting that was part of it. He also talked about how Turkey is attempting to coalesce Eurasia, meaning like Armenia, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, or all these areas, and how he put it, Ottoman Empire-ize or something, re-emerge the Ottoman Empire.
Wow.
Through their efforts in trying to coalesce these different countries because they all share similar cultures and so forth. And then he also said that China started a 30-year program about 15 years ago to try to refocus or change the kind of rules-based organizing and structure, political structure that's been in the world since World War II, where the U.S. basically set the rules and everybody follows them. What they're trying to do is rethink that, redo that, and set it up so that they set the rules and that we follow them. And well, why not? I mean, that's their prerogative. They certainly have been putting up with a lot, but I am no fan of China. At the same time, this is what they've been doing through trying to imagine the Silk Road through the Belt and Road program.
Oh, and what you were saying earlier about the Silk Road being disrupted.
Right. So the Silk Road is being disrupted because all these other things in play are preventing China from actually achieving those goals that they set out. Plus now, there's things going on in China where people are pushing back, even though they are such an authoritarian regime and country. These things are not being, they cannot achieve them because there's too much in play globally that will prevent them from really, And what I really appreciated about this guy is that he did not bring any sort of political affiliation or positioning into his argument. He was basically straightforward, saying, this is what's going on here, this is what's going on here, this is what's going on here, this is how they're all going to be affected by each other. Right. And I thought that was a really great analysis because it was probably some of the most neutral analysis that I had heard in a long time.
Right.
And then so the rules-based system, and so basically so that's and then in the U.S. I feel that in the U.S. is okay. So what he also said was that imperialism is returning. Okay, something that caught Julie's attention was something he called transactional democracy. Now, what he means by that is that transactional democracy is the kind of democracy that we're living in now. You vote for us, you support these policies, and we'll make sure that you get stuff. Okay? So we've been living as, consumers for the last, 60, 70 years. Okay? That's transactional democracy. It changed after World War II. We became a more consumer-oriented society. We have been going there throughout the beginning of the 20th century, but World War II really put that into place and cemented it into place. Real democracy went away after World War II ended.
Right.
What were you going to say?
Tell us what democracy really is, though, JP.
Okay, so...
Tell us what democracy really is. Where's my Columba? Gather around, boys and girls. Let's learn what democracy really is.
So, U.S.
Which is what we're dealing with
right
now.
What I intuited then from his what he was saying was, U.S. is in decline, and it feels like the U.S. is in the middle of a war between two factions. And we talked about this earlier, where one supports the global governance, and so that's the Democrats, and the establishment Republicans. Okay, and the other one supports imperialism through military dominance. So that's more of the Trump side, because Trump was definitely in with the military.
In Israel.
And so there's these two factions that are fighting and taking place. Now, getting back to your question of what is democracy? So we wrote this down. I didn't put it into our notes.
What?
What? But let me get it real quick.
Oh, it's like the big, like,
It was the big
big
takeaway.
thing. It's the big takeaway. It's like, this is what, this blew my mind. Basically what this, well, I can already tell you what it is.
Okay, you tell us, because I don't remember.
You can't have democracy, and I'm sure our followers and people who enjoy us are very intelligent, and sometimes they're more intelligent than we are. Imperial wealth. Democracy is born from imperial wealth.
Democracy does not create wealth. Democracy, and especially imperial democracy, creates the wealth. Okay? The democracy comes...
Whoa.
Yeah, imperial wealth creates democracy. Once the society is feeling comfortable enough, the democracy comes. Once the ruling class feels comfortable enough with its power around, not just in their own country, but throughout their empire, they then relax and give the peasants and the people the democracy. This is why the U.S. was allowed to be born. And the U.S. was created as a fiscal military state. Okay, it was born to make money from war. That was the purpose of this country.
Yeah.
And I would even go further and into it and say that it possibly.
I told you our followers are smarter than us. They're like,
Right.
oh yeah, we know
we knew
about
that. We knew that. I'm going to say that it's possible that the U.S. was an experiment and a project of the British government, and that the Revolutionary War was just theater. Oh my God!
It's not real. What's that from, like Wayne's World?
Wayne's World. Okay, alternative universe.
It's alternative
Okay,
universe
there,
time.
I said it. There, I said it.
Yeah. So basically, the United States was nothing more than an experiment for imperial wealth.
Now, I don't know if this is true or not. I don't have any.
Why not? It seems to make.
I don't have anything to support that evidence. I haven't read anything anywhere. This is just me creating ideas based on what I do know. Okay, so don't quote me on that. Do your own research and then get back to me. What is that from? Mystery?
Paris was bought by Roche when their groundbreaking gene therapy was flying through second clinicals, like the Hep C cure. New owner shelved it and went to the dark side. Had products already in the pipeline. Is this regarding the vaccine?
I guess, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've always wanted to go to Paris.
To Paris?
I don't know.
To Paris?
I don't know.
Unrefined
Well,
JP,
Julie-
undefined JP. Where
Julie,
JP? Where did you want to
We'll
go?
always have Paris.
We'll always, yeah. Even though we'll always have Paris.
Even though.
That was another thing. Is remember the Notre Dame?
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
The
Notre Dame.
fire in Notre Dame. That was a way
Yes, a construct. Yeah.
to privatize
Mm-hmm.
it and keep us peasants
Oh,
away from
well,
it.
We're at the top of the hour, but do you want to say
Oh,
something about that?
shoot. We're at the top of the hour. We could continue going for a little bit. I'm enjoying this, and I knew that we might go a little bit over. But you want to just keep going?
Sure. I mean, let's talk a little bit about privatization and class war.
And class war? Okay.
You've been talking about this a lot lately.
Yeah.
Unless you're tired and ready to wrap it up.
No, I'm not. I'm having fun actually. Well, I mean.
Do you want to take a break and play the tongue drum?
You can talk about class war. People like listening to you. I noticed that people stop chatting when you talk. Yet when I talk, people are like, anyway. So they're like, gather around, let's listen to Mr. JP.
I've turned to the sweets now.
Oh, thank you, Joyce. Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you, Joyce.
So something Julie's been talking about, how the war that's being waged on us is in fact, along with
Class war.
the total war that we've been talking about, is in fact class war, and it's not along the traditional class lines that we've been, that we're familiar with. All of this is all of it is being waged on the poor. The impoverished are going to be the recipients of the brunt of human capital markets. And it's already taking place. And it's done through data collections. It's done through what's taking place in the schools right now. The so-called learning that's taking place in the schools right now are on tablets and on, whatever else. And what the children are conducting, or what they're doing.
I'm holding up the tongue drum.
Yes, here's the tongue drum.
It's pretty, isn't it?
Yeah. Did somebody ask about it?
Yeah, they're like, nice music. And I said, well, we have, we're also playing the tongue drum.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a copyright live stream in the background. So what the children are doing, not only are they like earning so-called badges so that they can get on with the, building their portfolio of badges, but they're also conducting,
Sad. Really bad,
they're doing things that are what Allison has been calling programming. And programming can be identifying things, which allows the AI software to learn more. So this is machine learning. And so the children are helping the machines learn what different things are through their activities at school. So basically, they're providing free labor through the school districts, which is just fucking insidious, and they're basically slaves. We do this as well, and I believe that a lot, and we've been doing this for the past 15 years on Facebook and sharing our faces and sharing our likes and dislikes and all the things that we do. I mean, I think even those little CAPTCHA things where you have to identify a bus or a car or a boat for security purposes also help with the programming.
So they look like robots, don't they?
Uh-huh, yeah.
I don't know if you'll be able to see.
Yeah, that's a little less bright.
I'm sure you guys have seen this. Look at that.
Let me hold this up to our Facebook post. Yeah, so Facebook.
So they're being trained to be the robots. This is a new kind of like capitalism.
Right. So the poor, the impoverished are going to be placed into continual servitude, constantly having to catch up to learning more about their profession or their job through having to go through training, paying for that training, and constantly being in debt for that training. Okay? But there's also another level of class war that's taking place, and this is the class, obviously between the haves and the have-nots, but it's also between the people who are willing to go along with the bullshit and the people who are saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to live out here. And, we often refer to that blog piece that's on the World Economic Forum's website, the famous quote, "You will own nothing and you will be happy." Well, if you've ever read the blog piece, it says something like, I feel bad for the people who live on the outside, who live,
wow,
right? So these are the people who decided not to go into the smart cities, into the panopticon of constant surveillance, of living in small spaces so that you can rent out your living room to business meetings in order to make a living, in order so you can live in that society, in order so you can continue living in that society. It's very similar. It's sort of like what we're living with now, or what we've been living with for the last 25, 30 years on steroids, where you've got to have a job to pay for your car so you can go to work, so you can pay for that house, so you can have the job to pay for the house and the car to go to work, so that you can live in a house, so that you can have a car,
okay,
so
wow.
that you can pay for the car and pay for the house, so you can go to work to pay for the, right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? There was a poet, there was an LA poet in the 80s named Jimmy Towns, and he did a poem where he was talking about basically being a heroin addict, and he's like, the zombies, they're out and they're saying, please God, get me some stuff so I can be somebody, so I can get some stuff so I can be somebody, so I can get some stuff so I can be somebody, so I can get some stuff, and on it went.
Wow.
Okay? So it's the kind of thing that we've been Logan's run.
Right.
So it's the kind of thing that we've been living with for a long time. In fact, there's an animation that I put on one of our blog pieces, and I forget what the name of it is, but it's an animation of
Happiness.
Happiness, yeah, and it's these rats that are going through
It's
the motions.
anything but.
It's everything but happiness, and they're always chasing happiness, and the rats are us.
Right.
But anyway, I love tongue drums. That's cool.
Oh, good. Yeah, he can play it with his hands, but I can't so much. I use the
little strikers.
I use those soft strikers.
So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be living in eternal debt and servitude. And that class divide is going to be not just economic, but it's also going to be those who accept and those who don't. And what this is translating into right now, and what Julie's been talking about, are your experiences. So something that you pointed out right from the beginning, we did a video piece called Hard Reset, where we went out into a park in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, before they came up with the term, the Great Reset, we did a video
called Hard Reset.
And this was before we really had we had like 50 followers on YouTube and just a couple of people on Facebook that checked us out. But we had become friends with them. Right. And we were concerned about about them. We were really concerned about our friends. And so this was right at the very beginning of all of this. And so we went out to the woods and we sat down in front of a stream and we had a heart-to-heart conversation with our friends and our 50 followers on YouTube. And we said, you have to do whatever works for you.
Right.
You have to stay strong and do what's best for you, because what's coming is going to be so oppressive. And it's going to be so hard to pin down. This is your hard reset in life.
Right.
It's a hard reset of the country, of the globe. And then a few months later, the World Economic came out with the term, the Great Reset. Right. And we were like, okay, so we nailed it.
So we nailed it. But okay, so here's part of what Julie pointed out as we were walking to and from that setting where we did that video. There's a beautiful conservatory building.
Yeah, it's a really pretty building.
It's a beautiful Victorian age conservatory building, and we've gone in there a couple times to see the exhibits. Flowers, and there was a holiday exhibit every year that they do. And Julie said, in the future, basically, the haves and the have-nots will be divided in who can go in there and who can go in that building.
Man, I said this at the very beginning.
The very beginning.
Yeah.
If you get the jab, or if you get if you wear the mask, or if you have the money.
This was even before mask mandates.
This was even before mask mandates. If you have the money, you can go in. If you don't have the money, you can't go in. And now that's the way it is now, but it's going to be even more extreme. We started seeing these kinds of things happen in San Francisco before we left. Parts of Golden Gate Park were being taken over by companies or wealthy individuals. Areas that are public, the commons and part of the public, where you would normally be able to go, you couldn't ride through, or you couldn't ride your bike through, or walk through, or have access through this area, because some rich person, billionaire, or some corporation decided they were going to have a party, and they had to take over that section, and you couldn't go through there any longer. Okay, and this, and we talk about, festivals and stuff a lot of times. This was going on with the festivals, and some of the festivals were for the public, and some of them you had to pay. And even these things, I think, were sort of like part of the marching forward into the loss of the commons.
Right. So class war.
Erasure of the commons, debt enslavement, human capital markets, social impact bonds, and investment.
Yeah.
Yay!
It doesn't look good. But what I love, so there's two things I want to say. The first thing is that Alison McDowell keeps saying, look, we figured it all out. We put the pieces together. This is what they want to do. and this is what they have planned. And in certain cases, you can see that it's already starting to happen. I see it in my neighborhood, especially through like the nonprofits. But they haven't quite rolled it out completely. So this is the big plan, the big giant grand reset. This is the big plan, you know. And so she's out there giving, 1,000 interviews every week to try to inform people about, look, this is the plan. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the plan is going to roll out or the plan is going to come to any kind of cohesion or fruition. It's not going to happen. Maybe if we keep, criticizing the plan, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that I want to say, which is kind of like a little Pollyanna-ish and a little off the topic, is, we started this podcast 2 hours ago pretending, channeling Mr. Rogers, right? Because we live in Pittsburgh and he's from Pittsburgh. And one of the things that Mr. Rogers always said is that in a time of crisis or in a time of like, where there's a problem, like if you get lost or if there's a, war or something, look for the helpers, right? Look for the helpers. That's what his mother told him. His mother said, look for the helpers. And so we found the helpers. We found Allison, Josette, Julianne Romanello. We found the helpers to help us find our voice and help us curate a message with our backgrounds. All of you people watching today are the helpers, So I feel like, that might sound a little Pollyanna-ish, but I feel like that's what we've done. Like we got to look for the helpers. The helpers are going to really turn this thing around. It's been a year. It's been 1 year and so much has happened. There has been an explosion of information about everything from the way our country was truly founded to who's really running this thing straight into the iceberg.
Sorry.
There's been an explosion of information and education for people. People are getting, in 1 year's time, people have received more of an education than they have in their entire life through our platform and others. People like Allison, people like Julianne, people like media people, UK Colin,
even
all these
Corey,
people.
Corey Morningstar.
Corey Morningstar,
Corey Morningstar kind of got us in the trajectory.
We were following Corey like long before the Great Reset and 4IR and all that stuff.
And
so it opened the door.
And Corey's daughter.
Oh yeah, she's adorable. It opened the door for us to connect with other people. So, and one thing though that this entire thing is about, it's really truly about class war. It's really truly about taking all of society and turning it into some kind of like slave. A lot of people don't understand like the term human capital markets, and I understand that, or impact investment, or social impact bonds. These are difficult terms for people, especially like around where we live. Their eyes glaze over and we kind of lose them a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you say it in terms like you're going to be working.
Yes, the disabled for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're going to be working. So if you try to talk to somebody whose eyes might be glazing over and they may not get it, you would just say, you will be working, but without pay. They'll tell you you'll get pay, but you'll never really get paid for your work. And then they'll be like, well, I don't want to do that. And then you can have that kind of conversation. Like,
right.
I don't work for free, you know? So
I've tried having that conversation with my coworkers at the school bus company.
At the bus.
And it's hard.
Which, by the way, is closing up business.
Right,
They're shutting down business completely.
So this is another reason why we're pushing our Patreon account quite a bit. We would like to get up to speed with our patrons and making our goal so that we can replace that income that I was
That
bringing in,
he's gonna
that I'm going to
lose.
be losing once
Yeah.
June hits, once school
If
is
not
over.
sooner. If
Well,
not sooner.
no, I think that's well, yeah, it might end sooner, but
Yeah.
June is the goal, is the end date. So we would definitely like to go 100% with Book of Hours, and this is our opportunity to do that. So crisis and opportunity, as they always say, that cliche, right?
Thanks, Ron.
And so this will give us the opportunity to produce the work that we produce even more so, and really get our work out there. Something I wanted to say is that I think JB or Sherry, I forget who said it, said something about intentional communities. Now, intentional communities are a great idea. They're not always workable for people, or practicable for people. There are co-ops and things like that, but I would like to direct your attention to a video that I just dropped that was called Reciprocity. That's easy for you to say, Julie. Reciprocity.
It's on YouTube. It's
on YouTube. It's on right now. It is a segment from our larger video essay called 13 Amended. If you're a patron, you've seen 13 Amended. It's a long piece, and we released it in 3 parts. And we released teasers for it. But it's about a lot of different things dealing with what we're talking about: class war, slavery, the prisons that use people as slaves to produce product, and it's a model for how we're going to be living in the future. Okay, but at the end, I'm sorry, I take that back.
What?
Reciprocity is not from 13 Amended. Reciprocity.
It's from lifelong learning.
It's from lifelong learning. Okay, so this is a video that's Reciprocity is a segment from the video Lifelong Learning, which is available to everybody to see on YouTube. So you go watch both of them. But Reciprocity is a very specific part of the video. It is the finale that says, okay, we don't have to put up with this bullshit. Okay. If we don't do anything, that other shit that we talked about is going to happen. But if we separate ourselves, here's a suggestion for what you might think about doing in the future. So somebody mentioned intentional communities. We did a video about co-ops. Okay, cooperatives are also a means of doing things. And then there's other ways of organizing yourself horizontally as a collective. Okay, so think about these things, but reciprocity is about that. And I want to direct you to the show notes in Reciprocity, because we quoted, or I quoted in the script, an article that was in a newspaper somebody handed me at the Anarchist bookstore or book fair in Oakland a few years before we moved here. And it's online, and you can go read it. It's called Against Self-Sufficiency, The Gift. Okay, and it's talking about reciprocity and abundance, and how. And at one point in the article, it says, if you don't live in a community unless you have a rivalry, or you very much dislike somebody else in the community, and they dislike you. So there is going to be tension. There is not going to be a kumbaya moment in any community, whether it's intentional, whether you choose to live together, or if you have been living together for generations, like the people around here. We are interlopers. The people who live across the street have lived in this neighborhood for 3 or 4 generations. It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
Julie and I just have no clue about how that actually is possible.
How is that even possible?
Right.
I don't even know.
And Julie was talking about this house that we live in, and we know the woman whose father-in-law built the house. This house has been here 100 years, or almost 100 years. And there's people who live in this neighborhood who grew up in this house or visited this house as kids, visiting their friends, or played in this house. There are people who live in this neighborhood who have more connection to this house than we do.
Yeah, we just
Which
live
is
here.
just weird.
But
right?
we've really curated
But
this
what
house has
I guess
really
what I'm
good
trying
energy.
to say is the community is that.
Right.
A community doesn't have to be that. It can be something that you intentionally put together. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the people who, what I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, we have the opportunity to create communities that we've, you know, that we put together and we organize by ourselves, that are separate from that bullshit panopticon society that the World Economic Forum is proposing.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's bad. Like,
So go look at reciprocity. It's got a nice sunflower scene, and go
Yeah.
watch Lifelong Learning. Now, if you want to see 13 Amended,
become a patron.
become a patron and go see that, because
Yeah.
that's talking about what's going on as well.
We should also tell you that we're working on a video essay. All of our video essays will only be available on our Patreon page. We're working on a video essay about sort of the psychological warfare, and we're going to do it in a really creative way.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have 4 different storylines and we'll do animation. Like, it's going to be totally creative. It's taking a little bit longer to do, but it's going to be very rewarding once it's complete. That'll be for the patrons only. A second video that we're working on simultaneously is about the Fourth Amendment, suspension of the Fourth Amendment protection, which leads to the suspension of the Fifth Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a video that we will make public that we have been working on with a patron. So we sat down. So a lot of times, unlike what you'll find with other content creators, we actually reach out to our patrons and say, you're one of our higher contributors. Would you like us do you have a message out there that you would like to be relayed to the public that maybe we
Hi,
can...
Frida.
Hi, Frida. Maybe we can... We're just talking about, well, you know, maybe she wants us to be anonymous, but cat's out of the bag. So, you know, we worked with Frida to say, do you have a message out there that you would like to relay to the public? Something that we can interpret it for you. We're the creatives. We have the marketing background. We have the theater background. We have the art background, the art design background. Can we do that? So that's something that's different. A lot of patrons don't do, or a lot of content creators don't do that. A lot of artists on Patreon don't do that. They just create the work and the patrons go, wow, that's great. They don't actually reach back to the patrons and say, what do you want to say? What kind of message do you have to say?
Co-optation was another example of one of those videos.
So one of our other patrons, Judith, a couple of months ago, back in 2020, a few months ago, was like, I really want to convey how important it is that co-ops, which are worker-owned cooperatives, not fall prey to these wraparound services
the social impact bonds.
Social impact bonds, to stay true to their true vision. And so we made a really good video, got really good results. Actually, what I did is I took that video and I sent it to co-ops, and I said, use this as a training manual to alert your co-op, your worker-owned cooperatives, because everybody that works at a co-op also owns the means of production. So while you guys are having your meeting, watch this video so that you can be aware of these predatory schemes that might come sniffing around the door and want to take away your independence. And I actually got some really amazing feedback on Twitter from this. They were like, wow, this is amazing. So we're different. We're different because we have this pretty professional background, but we're also pretty marginalized. We're not as popular as some people. And it's, we feel like some other content creators are sucking the energy out of the room, and we just keep getting pushed to the margins.
Hi, Max Egan.
But I know, right? But we feel like we're starting to, cultivate our own message. Like we're becoming our own
And we're curating that message along with our patrons and people who support us. So we're very thankful for that, for that support from them. But also, we're also creating dialogue through content creation and creating these things. So if you haven't seen it, go out and watch Co-optation. It needs some love. It needs some hits.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the view count that some of our other videos do. It's a shorter video, but it's a very important one, and it goes along with something that Winter Oak just posted. They're another sort of, like we consider them like an ally and comrades and creators out there who have inspired us, and we inspire them, and we share each other's work.
Right.
But they posted a blog piece last month, I believe, about an organization that is a social impact organization, and they've been supporting or giving money to a lot of organizations that are now being lifted up and part of this whole COVID narrative that's going on. And one of those organizations was Extinction Rebellion, okay? And so this is sort of an expose on this particular organization in Britain, in the UK, that's been, funding organizations throughout Europe. There's other organizations in the U.S. that are probably doing some of the same things, and I suspect some of the organizations that I know have also been funded this way. I'm still in the middle of the article. It's a very big piece. It's a long article, and it's very full of information. So I would point you to winteroakuk.org or something. Look up Winter Oak on just a search, and it's part of their Acorn blog series, and I believe it was number 63 or 64, I forget which. But anyway, definitely worth a read. I can't put it in the show notes right now, but I think we put it in show notes for our last bookmark. Check it out. It's really good. It's about social impact investments. And Julie's talking to somebody. So
sorry, I
that's
have
okay.
to take care of this.
So we're about a half hour into overtime. How do you feel? How are you feeling? How's everybody out there feeling?
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to read a mantra, which I hope will, put a little fire in your belly. All right, let's read this, and then if I want to read the blog post, we can. But let me read this, okay?
Okay.
This is think about the last year of your life. Think about how everything has changed. How 1 year ago today, Trump announced that he was putting the country under a national emergency. And when a country is in the grips of a national emergency, the rule of law is suspended and rights are suspended. So I want to read this to you. If you want to stay home, stay home. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you want to avoid large crowds, avoid large crowds. I am not required to descend into poverty for you. I am not required to abstain from human contact for you. I am not required to shop alone for you. I was not born to be your personal punching bag, scapegoat, or recipient of your anger. I refuse to participate in quarantine life. I refuse to put myself at risk or impede my access to public accommodation to make you feel safe. I won't set myself on fire to keep you warm. Teachers, baristas, grocery store clerks, employees are committing fraud by forcing people to wear a mask. And fraud holds fines and possible jail time. I was not born to be your emotional comfort pet. If you're convinced the vaccine and the mask are safe and effective, I respect your choice. Respect mine. I can't control your self-destructive behavior. and you can't control what you perceive to be mine. You can choose to live in medical tyranny or a dictatorship. I choose not to. You may choose to live your life risk-free and bacteria-free with a mask on. I choose not to. We have a right to receive or refuse masks and vaccines and anything that violates human sovereignty. Extolling your virtue on others does not make you a good person. The common good was also the excuse for public stoning, witch burnings, and public shaming. The report used to justify masks and lockdowns and financial collapse was computer generated, not medically or scientifically proven, no double-blind studies were conducted, was funded by a vaccine maker, and has since been debunked by the very person that provided the so-called data to begin with. And speaking of the common good, I know that these anti-life measures are not for the common good of mankind, but for the delight of the state to exploit mankind. So that's what has been getting passed around on my social media.
I like that. You know, I think you should put that on the blog.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
put it on the blog.
I shared it, or I saved it off into a file, so you can probably do that pretty easily.
Yeah. I'll put it on the
Somebody
blog.
mentioned imperfect foods, and yeah,
Imperfect
I've
food?
known about them.
Imperfect food,
Yeah,
right.
and there was another group in California called like Ugly Food or something like
Ugly
that.
fruit,
and
yeah.
Ugly Fruit, or yeah, something like that. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was driving along on my route, and I saw somebody had a box out by the recycling, and it said imperfect food on it. So yeah, I know exactly what that is, and we'll have to look into it. Although, you know, we it's not happening right now, but once May comes around, we're gonna join up with our CSA again, which is a local organic farm.
Well, yeah.
Well,
it's
at least we talked about it.
Which you were gonna try.
We were gonna try. I don't
I
know.
mean,
You know, the nice thing without a job, it might be difficult. But
Money.
we also have our garden too. But it's definitely something to look into, because it's less
I know.
expensive
I know.
for the produce. You get good produce.
Mhm.
It's just that, you know, see, this is the thing. I've been buying organic produce for years, and a lot of times, even in grocery stores, organics are oftentimes a lot less showy, let's say, and perfectly presented than the
Non-organic.
the non-organic, the conventionally grown produce. But that said, you know, I was visiting some people on the Big Island of Hawaii one time, and they had a coffee plantation which had a lot of avocado trees and tons of macadamia nuts, which are this is a tiny macadamia nuts. They had, seriously, I was walking around. This is just a side story. Walking around the property, they used macadamia nuts as like mulch, because there were so many macadamia nuts. The woman who lived there, she cracked open the macadamia nuts and fed them to her jungle fowl, her chickens, right? And so it was nuts. The avocados were huge. What he told me was he was selling organic avocados to Whole Foods, but if they picked them, and the little, you know, stem that still sits at the top of an avocado, you know, that little tiny bit of stem that still sits on your avocado when you buy it, if that was removed, Whole Foods didn't want it. Now, part of the reason is that it kind of keeps it fresh, but at the same time, it's also just, it's aesthetics. It's bullshit, right? And but you know, it does. I suppose that it dries out maybe a little faster without that nub, but I don't believe that so much. And that's basically what he was telling me too. Is that it was just a means of it was more merchandising than it was actually fresh produce. And he was producing some amazingly huge avocados. They were giant. They were the kind of avocados that I grew up with as a kid. Now, because water is such an issue in California and probably in Mexico too, they don't irrigate quite as much as they used to, and they pick sooner. So you get these tiny ass little avocados from the store, Whole Foods or Aldi or wherever you buy them from, especially the organic ones. They're tiny. So the point is that imperfect food allows you to, organics and ugly foods and imperfect foods allows people to buy produce that normally would have been thrown away and not used. So, and, in the case of this farmer that I was visiting, he was an expert in like large scale composting. So that's what happened to a lot of the stuff that he was not able to sell. But because he was composting it, he turned it back into, a means of fortifying and creating nutrition for his own fields and groves. So there you go.
So we this here was to talk about the last year of our lives.
I know. I remember when.
And we've talked about, we've talked about other things as well, which was kind of the whole point of this too, was just to keep it really casual. But I think that, one of the things that people might be, wondering about is what in the world might be coming next.
I even covered that part.
Huh?
I covered that part.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. And so it goes back to imperialism. It goes back to this idea that imperial wealth is what creates so-called democracy. So democracy is born out of imperial wealth. And it's hard to know what to do because we've kind of we've never really been here before because some people say, oh, this is another Cold War. Well, not really.
It's beyond that. It's much more than
totally
Cold.
beyond that.
And like we said, it's total war. So it's not
total war.
Yeah. So think of Napoleonic wars, and then some.
Right.
Right.
So this is definitely a war on it's a war on what it means to experience anything human. Like just going to a simple event with my local nonprofit that invited us to go to an event where it's like, oh, come have some coffee and cookies with us,
Yoink.
for to celebrate the first day of spring. And you think, that's normal. That sounds so good. But then if you read the small print, it says, in a socially distanced way. And then the next thing you read is, we're having this event in conjunction with this other organization, which is based out of the CIA. So no, I'm not going to have anything to do with it.
Well, Dr. Kaufman, what is his first name?
Andrew
Kaufman, was saying in an interview that we watched, he was saying something like, I'm not going to go do something that I enjoy, that's pleasurable, but be oppressed while doing it, right? I am not going to go do something that I enjoy doing, but be oppressed while I'm doing it. And I just repeated myself, but I wanted to emphasize that. Yeah. Right? That, Julie and I have been watching how the festivals that we used to enjoy going to are now starting to come back. But the language around what's going to happen in terms of how you show up and what you have to do once you're there are very vague right now.
Yeah,
and
they're
that's because
a little too vague.
They're a little too vague because we feel that they're basically going to say, hey, come to our thing and spend this money. Yoink, you're going to have, this, that, and the other thing in order to get in. And by the way, if you don't do those things and you don't want to come, we can't refund your money. Okay, so these are the kinds of tactics that are going to be used a lot in the future. And it's just very sad. In the UK, they're talking about festivals that are now requiring vaccines in order to go. But, where's how are they going to show proof? Is what it's coming down to.
Right.
And we talked about that a little bit, how, wraparound services are going to start coming into the festivals, and they're going to be like sort of these contractors that supply that just, hey, you need that vaccine verified? Well, we've got just the product for you. You know, so you're going to have an app, or they're going to do something that will require you to go through these steps.
It's really bad.
And you're going to have to spend extra money and extra time and extra effort in order to go do something that's fun and pleasurable that you used to do, but now is a form of oppression.
My feeling is that we're going to get to a point where, you know, so many people are going to push back against, you know, having to live their life through the veil of oppression. You know, it's like, great, I'm going to go to this event. Oh, but wait, I have to socially distance. Oh, but wait, I have to wear a mask. Oh, but wait, I have to show a negative PCR test. And then, you know, and then it just...
And it has to be done within, you know, 24 hours before I go.
And everything that you do and everything that you have to be in order to, you know, have a life takes... It chips away at your joy. Mm-hmm. It's like a chip away at your joy, so that what's left of you is nothing but a demoralized, humiliated, sad individual that's just going through the motions of life instead of actually living a real life. So, what's going to come out of this? I'm convinced of it because I'm already talking to people who are like, we're going to make something new. What's going to come out of this are new experiences that say, that's it. You know, we're just, even if it's just in someone's backyard, you know, we're going to plug in a cheap little amplifier and we're going to have a little music festival, have 5 or 10 people come over, drink beer, drink cocktails, have 7-Up, whatever, you know. Enjoy life, you know, for those people who don't drink. You know, enjoy life and be together without having to chip away at what makes us human. You don't need an app to get into this, you know, into this future utopian, you know, situation, which may not be as fancy and as well funded as some of the other ones, but you've got to start somewhere.
Lucy Cat just said that too many people enjoy the new normal, and I would agree with that to some degree.
Yeah.
I think that there's probably there are a lot of people that do enjoy it. We were talking earlier about the kid that lives across the street who loves his mask, but he's also 8, right? But I think that there's a lot of people out there that are complying because they don't want to be targeted. So Julie had a conversation with a dude in Pittsburgh, downtown Pittsburgh, black dude, and she's like, you know, do you believe this stuff? And he's like, no, but basically what he told her was, I don't want to be targeted. So I'm going to, you know, wear this thing because even though I don't believe in it, I don't want to be targeted. Pittsburgh is a very racist city, and it's been a police state for a very long time.
Yeah.
I can understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
So I believe that there are a lot more people out there that are like him, or they are in a situation where they have to do this for their job, and there's no way around it. I was able to negotiate around that in my own job, but you know, I'm not going to be able to really go anywhere after that to find anything that will, you know, allow me not to wear a mask at work.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a lot of people, I think, are feeling the way that we're feeling, but they have to. Like, I see a woman standing at the bus stop every morning when I ride my bicycle to work. I don't take the bus, I ride a bicycle. And she already has...
We don't have a car.
Yeah, we don't. She already has her mask on before she gets on the bus. She's been indoctrinated. But she's been indoctrinated because she's a security person. And that job requires it. And she got to the point where it's like, oh, fuck it. I'm just gonna, you know, just wear it all the time. These are the people, the working class people, the poor, the people that we were talking about before, that are going to be on the receiving end of social impact investing on human capital markets, are also the ones that are obeying the rules because they've always been under the heel of oppression of capitalism. And this is just another layer, yet another thing that they have to do in order to survive. And that's fucked up. And I my heart goes out to them. I don't appreciate that they have to do this, but I think that indoctrination just kind of comes into play.
Yeah.
Just like the kid across the street who now will not take off his mask.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm waiting at the bus stop to take the bus to go in and get like cheese. I go to this little market where I can get cheese.
Locally produced cheese.
Locally produced cheese. It's really good cheese. And at this particular market, they offer it at a lower price. Like if you buy it in bulk, they give you like a pretty good discount. So it's a good deal, and it's cheese I eat. So I have to take the bus to go get it. So I'm waiting at the bus stop, which is also where his school bus stop, goes and picks him up. And he hasn't seen us in months because they follow the rules. They're like, oh, we were positive for COVID, so we had to quarantine for 2 weeks. I'm like, so basically you incarcerated yourself for no reason because COVID is a scam and it doesn't exist. That's your choice, and it's totally fucked up, and that's considered, in my opinion, child abuse. But this kid is really excited to see me because he likes us. Before COVID, they used to come over here all the time, and he used to play with we have some toys around and stuff, and he used to play with the toys, and he loved coming over here. And, he's like 7 or 8 years old, but he loves his mask. He's so addicted to it, and he's like, and he's talking to me like he's really excited to see me, and I'm like, look, I'm really excited to see you too, and I'm really happy, but I can't understand you. Take off your mask so I can see your very handsome face. Because he's 7, 8 years old, and he just stared at me like, I'm not freaking off my mask, and I'm like, well, then I can't really talk to you. Like, I need to talk to your face. I don't want to talk to a robot. He loves robots, I'm like, I don't want to talk to a robot. I want to talk to you. So, and there was another little kid standing there watching our interaction and like staring at me. Like no one had ever talked to him that way. Like if you tell the kids, I want to talk to you, but I don't want to talk to you with a mask on. I need to see your face. I need to. Maybe, so I didn't tell you about that part where there was another kid
I
sitting
didn't know
there.
that, yeah.
Yeah, another kid standing there, and he's like watching this interaction between me and my little neighbor friend. Did
he have a mask on?
Yeah. He also had a mask on. Jesus. He was standing waiting for the bus as well to take him to school.
Wow.
It's terrible, you guys. Like, it's really bad. And the fact that they're on the tablets and they're being trained to be the future robots.
One of the things
really
somebody
bad.
Just said that parents are encouraging fear. Well, one of the things we've noticed though is that this child, his mother said, I can't get him to take off the mask.
It's not her fault. And that's something that really opened my eyes, is she's a really good mother. She does not wear a mask. She tries to lead by example, but she is under enormous pressure. First of all, she can't find a job to save her life, so she lives with her parents, who are incredibly controlling. They have taken over, basically, control of the child. She barely has control of her own son.
Barely her own life.
In her own life. I mean, she is trying her very hardest to lead by example by not, wearing a mask, which is one thing she feels that she can do. But she's got the entire school district against her. It's not like she's gone out and been like, I'm gonna, be an activist. That's not what she's not like that. But she's trying so hard, and the whole school district wants all the kids to wear a mask. Her parents want the child to wear a mask.
Yeah.
They quarantined. They all believed it when they got negative COVID results. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Or positive COVID results.
So I think that there are parents out there.
It's just ridiculous.
The people who insist on masks. The people that I see walking around outdoors by themselves or driving by themselves in their own car with their windows rolled up with a mask on.
Oh my God!
Right.
It's so dangerous.
These are the people that I think the commenter was referring to. That they are poisoning the children's minds. That they're getting them to think that this is the normal, and wearing a mask is part of that. And so these are the people that are the problem, right? the people who think that this is stupid or bullshit or whatever are having a hard time getting their kids to stop wearing the mask, dealing with the powers that be, the institutions that are forcing people to mask up and sit there. As I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the podcast, whatever you want to call it, the webcast,
The livecast.
the livecast, the cast, that on my way back to the bus yard where I drop off the van that I drive, I'll see several groups of children waiting for a school bus to go to school. And the other day I saw a couple kids with their mom. They didn't have any masks on, and I was like, yay! Happy. But I see this other mother, and I think she's in the same camp with our neighbor across the street. Basically, she's sitting there without a mask, and just kind of like, I can see the look on her face like, this is bullshit, and her kids have masks on, And I used to be very critical of her, but then I realized after, hearing from our neighbor what was going on with her, that this isn't necessarily the parents' fault.
These
are the institutions that are reinforcing these messages over and over again. It's very pervasive. And if you're a child without any sort of means of discrimination of the messages coming into you,
you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't have the capacity to discriminate. No, we don't mean discriminate like, oh, I'm going to discriminate against you. No, but to parse out when somebody is discernment. That's the term that we're looking for. Discernment. Children don't have discernment. Grown-ups say, do this. Children just do it.
Right. Or, unless they're saying no, but no.
It's really, it's so, I guess, unfortunately, it's not going to get... It's not going to get any better. Like my friend Lance said at the who's joined. Thank you, Lance, for joining today. Who said at the very beginning of this thing, and he's a good friend of mine. I know him personally. He lives in San Francisco, and he was at our wedding. He's a good friend.
And he's dealing with all the propaganda there.
Right. And the first thing that he told somebody when he was going to pick up lunch or whatever on his lunch break from work. The person at the cafe said, well, I'll be glad when this ends. And Lance just looked him straight in the eye and said, this is never ending. It's only going to get worse. It's never going to end. And I'm afraid, I'm not about false hope. I'm afraid he's right.
He is right.
I'm afraid he's right. I'm afraid that this is it, you guys. And that, we got to figure out a way to create a new separate civilization. Mm-hmm. It's
parallel societies.
A parallel society, and it's really scary, and it's really hard, and it's hard to do when there's no money, and it's hard. It's really scary.
We've been trying in our particular community before COVID.
Mm-hmm. Even before
because
COVID.
we live in a community that's Julie says over and over again, is an opportunity zone, but it's a very part of our community is a food desert, because part of it isn't on a bus line that takes you directly to a grocery store within whatever the time frame is that the government, the Department of Agriculture says so, right? So part of our community is a food desert. Where we live is not particularly, but it isn't easy to get to the grocery store.
Look, in San Francisco, you could fall out of your house and you could reach your arm across the street and have access to a bushel of organic food.
It depends. So now, our neighborhood, yeah. But there were parts of our city, even blocks from where we live, that didn't have that.
That didn't have that.
And so, we live in this area, this sort of deep poverty. Mm-hmm. And we were working with the merchants and the neighbors to try to create a neighborhood business owner association so that people who live in the neighborhood
could be protected from fascism.
Right. And people who own businesses exchanged ideas and talked. And, this went away once COVID hit.
Right.
Okay.
But check this out.
But let me finish my point. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. We have been trying for a long time to get that kind of thing going
Mm-hmm.
And people here are very resistant to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's along the lines of what I was talking about before, where they are poor and they are working class, and they've always been told what to do, not do for themselves, but told what to do. And so it's a very difficult process,
Right.
of getting people to come along. And so we have stopped trying, beating ourselves up, trying to get a community together as an alternative to what's going on out there.
Right.
Because it's just, there's no reception for it out there.
Mm-mm.
And if you're running into those same kind of problems, I feel for you, because we're going through that ourselves. However, if you have the means, or you have the network of people that allows you to create these alternative parallel societies or communities, by all means, push that and go for it, and embrace your neighbors, and try to embrace the abundance and the reciprocity that we were talking about. Now, I'm sorry.
No. What I want to try to explain to people is, there's the whole country, right? And then there's pockets of the United States that's fully open, where you don't have to wear a mask, the smaller businesses haven't closed, and things are fine. And there's so many different little nuances to why that is. Okay, so the first thing you have is, in some communities you have a neighborhood association. We tried to create a neighborhood association here in this little neighborhood in Pittsburgh where we live back in 2018. And the response from the neighborhood, which was the neighbors, also the small business owners in the area, as well as some people from the municipality. We're talking about like representatives or commissioners or people that are part of the government, the small government body. They said, why do you want a neighborhood association? And my response was, in case in the future some dumbass law is passed that says that you have to close your business or lock yourself inside of your home with no proof of claim, a neighborhood association will be banded together. It will have representation from an attorney, and it will have support from the entire community to fight against some outside source that might say, I need you to close your business. I need you to stay inside. I need you to close your schools. A neighborhood association protects you from this kind of outside tyrannical, like crazy, like totally never heard of, who would ever do such a thing type of experience, right? And so in 2018, I explained that to them. Of course, I explained it in a much nicer way, much more, professional and kind and humble and all that. And the response I got from the local community is, that's crazy. Who would ever close down schools, shut down small businesses, force people inside their homes without any proof of claim? That's crazy talk, lady from San Francisco. What are you talking about? That's crazy talk.
And guess what happened? Right.
And because the neighborhood association that we had fought so hard to bring together in cohesion, and I knew it was happening. I could feel it in my soul that something really bad was happening coming around the corner, and I was pleading with these people, please, you've got a little brew pub over here, you've got a little bakery over here, you've got a school over here, all of this is within walking distance from where we live, you've got a little movie theater, you've got a diner, all of you people band together so that when your governor or your mayor or your local municipality says, I need you to shut down your business, destroy your income, destroy your only means of production, throw your kids out of school, stay inside your home, you can band together with your power together as a group, and you can say, no. There are bylaws in place that you, the municipality, have to follow because this is the neighborhood association. We're kind of like the Chamber of Commerce. You have to follow these bylaws. And part of the bylaws will stipulate that you cannot close down a business. You cannot force individuals inside their homes without proof of claim. Okay? That's why you have some communities in the United States that have never closed, because they have strong neighborhood associations. They have strong business associations that were already in place, that were already there. Now, you have a place like San Francisco, which has a really strong business association for every neighborhood and a very strong chamber of commerce. Unfortunately, those business associations and those chambers of commerces and those neighborhood associations are corrupt. They do the bidding of the local tech companies who want everybody to shut down. Especially San Francisco.
Right.
So if you're in a small community in the Midwest and you never shut down and you never ever closed your doors and you never forced your customers to put a mask on and you never talked about socially distancing and you don't have the dumbass signs in your windows that say 6 feet apart and you don't say, I stay safe and you stay safe and all that bullshit, it's because that small community in the Midwest had a strong neighborhood association. A band of businesses and neighbors get together. They meet once a week or they meet once every quarter and they talk about issues that could possibly have happened in the future to shut down their means of production and how to get ahead of it in case it happened. And that's what I was trying to do here. That's what we were trying to do here, was to bring cohesion and understanding that this was going to happen. All right? And they're just whatever. They were just like, that's never going to happen. This has been going on for 100 years. Our businesses have been fine for 100 years. What are you talking about?
Well,
this is never going to happen.
But at the same time, we
don't mean to get all.
We talked to one of the business owners.
Sorry.
He's like, yeah, well, you kids, good
yeah.
luck with all that.
Good luck with all that. And now his business is shut down.
Right. Well,
it doesn't have to be, but he chose to because he doesn't understand that this isn't real.
The thing is, he was basically on his way out of, he's in semi-retirement at this point.
Whatever.
He sells tires and he's closed for 6 months out of the year because, once people get their all-weather tires, he doesn't really have a business, so he shuts down and then opens back up when they need to change their tires back to normal. But he'd been in the community. His business has been around since 1944, and he bought it in the 70s. And so, he's like, look, I've been around. I've been seeing what's been going on for the last, 50, 60 years. And I don't, it's like, you guys think that you're going to change things. Good luck with that.
So, in answer... right.
So, you have that kind of apathy.
Right. And I don't mean to get all upset and animated.
Combined with a community that's been thrown under the bus since the 1950s, multiple times.
Right.
So, we got the history of things. In the 50s, this area was very dependent on the train, the locomotive train industry. And then, second to that was the steel mills. And so between that happening and then NAFTA happening, this area has become quite a very, just like a shelled out, hollowed out shell.
It's like living in a third world country.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to do is explain that over the last year, there have been pockets of communities throughout the United States that have never changed anything. And some of you out there, some of our followers, some people out there are going, wait a minute, how is that even possible? How is it possible that this community here never shut down? And yet a mile away, you've got the whole thing, boarded up, people locked inside their homes, afraid of a disease that doesn't exist and all this stuff. And yet 1 mile away, you have an entire community that's operating as if there's nothing wrong. That's because they had a strong neighborhood association that was at the ready, that was prepared for some bizarre, crazy, totally, wacky idea that somebody out of nowhere who's in a position of authority, like a government agent, might say one day, I need you to shut down your business because I say so, and I don't have to provide proof of claim. At which point a neighborhood association will say, oh, well, wait a minute, our bylaws, which are written by an attorney, which you approved of. Sorry, I don't mean to do that. I know somebody you don't like does that, and that's very annoying to you. But somebody But somebody in your municipality who is a lawyer approved of these bylaws all those years ago. Okay? So that's why you have some neighborhoods that are open, some counties and cities that are open, some areas of the United States that are completely open. Even if they have the tyrannical Democrat governors that are forcing them to close, their little communities have strong neighborhood associations and strong business associations. That's the importance of having one. It is absolutely important that you have one in place, bylaws in place, signed by municipal agents who then can't go back on their own word unless, what would happen if they did that is that business association would end up unseating the elected official and coming in and taking over the government of the place. So this is why business associations and neighborhood associations over the years have been so compromised and watered down and been so secretive, because they don't want people knowing about the power that they actually do have. They don't want neighborhoods knowing about the power that they do have. They don't want the small business person knowing about the power that they have. Now, to remind everybody, though, that we're still in the national emergency. Your constitutional protections, your rights, your human rights, all of these things, whether you're in an open state or not, whether you're in the state of Texas, for instance, the governor recently said, hey, look, there's no mask mandate, there's no social distance, there's no COVID protocol in place at all, live your normal life, and yet people aren't. And yet, people are still being targeted for not wearing a mask, like in certain stores and stuff. That's because with a national emergency in place, all of your human rights and all of your constitutional and civil rights are suspended. They're suspended. The rule of law is suspended under a national emergency. So all of this craziness that you're doing, I'm going to take the governor to court, I'm going to take the mayor to court, I'm going to take this business to court. It doesn't matter. You need the national emergency to end. You need Biden or Congress to officially end the national emergency in order to reinstate your constitutional and civil rights and protections. And that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. That's why you have to create a new form out of this garbage heap that we live in. You have to pull yourself out of it and create a new form of government and a new form of democracy that is protected, that operates outside of the national emergency. Say, no, I'm a new kingdom. I'm a new municipality. I don't have any allegiance to this old United States of Corporation America. I need a new form of government, a new form of governance.
Well, or a self-organized community, right?
Community,
right.
Yeah. And then within those self-organized communities can come your new governance, can come your new democracy.
Well, I would hope that it would be self-governing at that point.
Probably would be.
Yeah.
I don't think, because what did we learn from Trump? What was the number one takeaway that we learned from that man and from the election of that man? We learned that people hate representative democracy. They hated the establishment. They were done with it. So they went with a populist. So that tells me that new self-governing societies that don't have, a president or a vice president or a secretary of state, that won't exist. That won't exist in this new form of self-governance that he was just talking about.
So we're talking about direct democracy and self-organization.
It's committees of people coming together in small groups, in small societies.
And all parts of the community,
right.
Voting and agreeing to the rules of how the community lives.
Right.
And and I think that it is possible, especially given what we're looking at is and referring back to what I was talking about before, where you're going to have the inside people living in the panopticon smart cities, okay, And then people on the outside of all that, what are they going to do? Well, I think that hollowing out something new out of the shell of the old in a self-governing, self-organized situation
Right.
is probably going to be one of the best ways to go. You are volunteering who you live with. You are volunteering how, to live with other, with specific people in a group that will allow you then to set the rules of your particular group and how you interact with each other, how you conduct trade, and who does what, and how the community works and organizes and things like that. Now, a couple things. Earlier, somebody mentioned something about CSAs, community supported agriculture, and we mentioned that earlier too. We were part of one last year. This particular organic farm, because we're in Pennsylvania, they only operate during a certain time of the year. When we lived in California, we had a CSA all year round, and what was cool was that it was an aggregate CSA, so it was a combination of different farms that this CSA brought together. We were able to choose what we wanted per week on the website, and then we picked up that produce every week.
Right.
The CSA that we belong to now, we have the choice of every other week, but we get what they grow. It's one farm. It's organic, and it's lovely, and they do work with other farms to bring. We got some maple syrup one time. Remember, a bottle of maple syrup from a local orchard. We got some other kind of cool stuff that came along, that they work deals out with. We came across this CSA through the farmers market before COVID. After COVID, they were all like, mask and put your money in this container and we'll clean it later.
Yeah.
Bullshit. It's like,
it's
what?
Creating a bunch of OCD,
right? So that's the CSA that we belong to. But somebody also mentioning growing your own. Roxy's around somewhere. Somebody also mentioned grow your own food. So we do actually have a garden, and something that came to mind is, let me know through your comments or through email. You can go to info@book-of-hours.com. Would you be interested in seeing gardening videos from Book of Hours? So, I know how to garden, but I'm also I'm in a new zone, a new, area. I've only grown in California before. I've only had one season of growing in Pennsylvania. So info@book-of-hours, correct. Let us know if you're interested in seeing our progress and how we're doing with our garden. We had quite an experiment out back last year, and the things that I learned last year will be applied to this year. I went back to some of my old organic gardening books and learned more about companion planting, because I never really had a real insect problem in the Bay Area, whereas in Pennsylvania it's a big issue. Some of the bugs that come about I've never had to deal with before. So companion planting is going to be a big part of what I do this time. So for instance, my radishes and my squash will be grown next to each other to prevent the squash bugs from attacking my plants. So these are some of the things that I'm going to be working with. Let me know if you're interested in seeing videos about this, and that would be awesome. And somebody said yes. Sherry said, yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so we'll work on that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Sherry also said that Trump wasn't a populist, and I mean, everybody's kind of compromised. I get that, but I think as far as why people voted for him, it's because they were tired of establishment representative democracy. They wanted to vote for somebody who was outside of the
belt zone
the belt zone, and that's what I meant.
Beltway.
Or the beltway. That's what I kind of meant by the word populist, is that he was somebody who just wasn't part of it, and that's just it. And that tells me that people are over representative democracy. They're over voting. They're over voting for more you
Same
know,
old bullshit.
more people who end up look what happened with Joe Biden, who, by the way, did not win the presidency, just putting that out there. Same thing, Hillary Clinton did not win the primaries. It was Bernie Sanders who won the primaries, and Joe Biden did not win the presidency. Okay, I'm just going to put that out there. But look what you get with your presidents, and look what you get with your Congress. You get fascism handed to you. You get told that you're being fed a lobster dinner, and you're looking at a shit sandwich. And you're like, wait a minute, this is a shit sandwich. And you've got Nancy Pelosi telling you, no, it's a lobster dinner. And you're looking at it and you're like, no, it's poo-poo. And she's like, no,
it's poop between slices of bread.
You're like, it's poo. And she's like, no, it's a lobster dinner. That's democracy. That's representative democracy. Is you don't get anything out of it. You don't get anything with your taxes. You get nothing. You have to pay into a mandate that bails out the insurance company, and you don't get anything in return. You don't get good coverage, health coverage. It's not health care. It's a bailout for the insurance companies, just like it was with Obama.
Yeah.
That's all you get with representative democracy. And they just leech your money out of you and leech your life out of you. Wouldn't you want to just remove yourself completely from that entire shit show and start something new?
Right.
It's
Lucy in the football.
That's outside of it. So and right now, what's fascinating about COVID-19 and what we've experienced about the age of COVID and 4IR, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the Great Reset, and all this bullshit. What's fascinating about it is that you've got people who I would never in a million years think would be on my side, who are on my side. And that's what's fascinating about it is, and the people that I would assume that would be on my side have been like, oh, no, we have to mask up and take a vaccine and allow sustainable development goals to pull people out of their homes and move them into concentrated blocks of city planning situations, That's not good, so it's really interesting. So there's been this huge break with people who thought they knew what they knew. They thought that everybody that they knew in their life was somebody else. It's like you wake up one morning and you're like, I don't know who any of these people are. Yeah. These people I've known for years.
Right.
Who are you?
For a while there, we were getting a lot of stories about that. How, somebody would say, I had this friend, I knew him for 30 years.
Yeah.
Came to my wedding, blah, de, blah, de, blah, blah, blah. And COVID comes along and they basically have turned their back on me. And, we've experienced that as well, certainly. And right. There's a particular individual who is from Pittsburgh, who now lives in San Francisco and has lived in San Francisco for a long time. And he's the worst. He attacks me on my own Facebook page all the fucking time because he doesn't he thinks that I'm some he thinks that I'm a Trump supporter and a QAnon follower. And I told him outright, I said, first of all, you should know that I didn't vote for Trump. You should know that because I've stated that I'm anarchist. Second of all, no one on my feed ever refers to QAnon. So what the fuck are you talking about?
You're just making shit up.
You're
pulling
just making
shit out of your ass.
Exactly. You're going, and I told him, and this is what else he does, and this is, you'll find this too with your own friends, is they just speak in cliches and off the top of their head phrases that they've learned from wherever.
Just watching Rachel Maddow.
Right. To go after you, and you're experiencing the same thing that I am.
Right.
And I told him that. I said, I've been called a Q too. Yeah, right, yeah. Exactly. The latest South Park episode sounds
little
like
cuties.
The little cuties. That sounds. We saw the thing for that.
The preview.
The trailer, the preview. That looks pretty fucking funny. Anyway, the point is that people are going to go after you for things that you don't even do or say or think.
Right.
They're just going to use cliches. And you guys just have to call them on that. So,
yeah.
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 We're coming up on
Oh.
3.5 hours.
Wow. Maybe we should wrap it up.
So I would say, yeah, it's probably a good time to wrap things up.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
it's
getting late.
10:20 East Coast time, and I have to say, in an hour and a half, more or less, we're going to switch our clocks
Forward
into the bullshit, that everybody calls, what is it called?
Daylight
saving time.
Savings time?
Daylight saving time.
Savings time?
Not savings, saving.
Daylight saving time.
Yeah. So tomorrow morning,
I'm all, I don't know.
tomorrow morning, if you get up at 7, it's going to be darker than it was today at 7, which is fucked up. I don't get daylight saving time. I hate it. I've always hated it. And when I was a kid, I still don't understand it fully. It's a bullshit concept that some asshole came up with and sold to,
Farmer?
He claimed it was for farmers, to help them out. But he, I don't even remember the full story, but he basically was able to sell it to politicians. And it's become a worldwide adoption of this bullshit theory that really doesn't really do anything. And it doesn't really help anybody. I don't understand it. I think it's a disruption to our lives, and I fucking hate it, and I've always hated it. When I was a kid, I didn't understand it because I thought, like, okay, how is it that they moved the planet and the sun?
The planet moved. Sun moved.
How do they move the planet so that it doesn't, like, the hour does difference and, yeah.
Yeah,
and
little kids are so dumb.
Well, dumb or overthinking things. And there's been many a time when I've been caught off guard with daylight saving time, either in the spring or the fall, where I've shown up too early for something or shown up too late.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard, and I really fucking hate it. But in about an hour and a half. No, well, actually, it's 2 a.m. when you're supposed to move your clock. Now, who of you out there get up at 2 a.m. or are up at 2 a.m. specifically
to change
your clock?
Well, before digital, my family did that. Before digital, when we all just had regular clocks on battery or wind-up clocks. Yeah.
Your family did it?
That.
My family would do it before they went to bed.
Oh yeah, they would do it before they went to bed. Yeah.
Now me, I do it the next morning, but with the
your computer changes automatically. Your cell phone changes automatically. So everything's just automatic.
Your funnel slab automatically updates.
Automatically.
Yeah. So Arizona doesn't. Yes, that's right. So Arizona doesn't participate in it, which is a smart move.
What?
For Arizona. Now here's something really fucked up. Indiana, half the state does it, and the other half doesn't. And it's not geographically split in half. It's weird gerrymandering kind of thing. So Indiana is kind of fucked up in that part of the state does it and part of the state does.
That's so weird.
It is weird. And then Arizona sits this one out. So thank you for mentioning that, Frida.
So to wrap up, this was about the last year of our lives.
Right.
And we've added a little bit of extra here
time,
and there.
Yeah.
But the last year of your lives, we have watched the evolution and the genesis of the podcaster go from,
Sherry does it too. Well, you're an Idaho. Okay.
Go from, podcasting like this, where you're like, oh, hey, should we check to see what that immunologist who we can see up their nostrils has to say? Because these are scientists that weren't used to being in front of the camera, so they've actually really upped their game a little bit. So we've watched the evolution and the genesis of the podcaster. We realize that this is total war, that wartime tactics are being waged on you
at all levels of the society.
From your clergy to your grocery store to your dry cleaner to your cafe to your school to your employer. In every part, certain people in certain positions are proxy armies for the state to wage war on you.
The world is in total flux.
The world is in flux because there's a lot going on that's even outside of COVID. For instance, the Belt and Road Silk initiative out of China is kind of put on hold because of this fake pandemic.
Or the Silk Road.
The Silk Road,
the reinstatement of the Silk Road.
Right. It's kind of like in turmoil right now because of the pandemic, and it makes me think that they fabricated this pandemic in order to keep China from moving forward, and becoming a economic power. Okay, or try to. Because
more so than they are now.
More so than they already are now. So there's that going on. So Syria was just bombed. I mean, there is so much going on. You've got the central banks that have taken over, and basically acted like the mob and forced people to take loans that they'll never be able to afford to pay back. Forced entire countries, NATO countries, to take loans that they can never pay back. So there's a lot going on besides,
the World Economic Forum.
Besides the World Economic Forum, which in our opinion, all they are is a marketing website. They're literally a marketing website. And they're used as a source for CNN to write their stories and for NPR to write their stories and write their propaganda.
Right. So
if you notice, if you go to the World Economic Forum, they'll write a little blurb, a little paragraph about something, about, say, sustainable development goals or the green initiatives. And out of that little paragraph will come like a 6-page article from the New York Times, which is nothing but propaganda and lies. So the World Economic Forum is nothing but a marketing website for these propaganda agents of the state to use to try to gaslight you into thinking that this is what you need. So this is complete psychological warfare, total warfare. It's one thing to just have like a bad guy come in and drop bombs on your schools and hospitals. Okay. But to have a complete but if the bad guy came in and dropped bombs on your schools and hospitals, you could still walk over to your grocery store and not have to wear a mask. You could still go to church without having to worship at the feet of COVID. You could still go and do things. You could still have house parties. You could still have civic events. It's just that you had the bad guys trying to take over your country because of the bombing campaign. That's war, but it's not total war. Total war is when every aspect of your life is done through the lens of COVID. I can't even go meet my friend to get a cup of coffee without them saying, I need you to put on a mask so that we can go to this coffee shop. No, that's total war. I don't want to engage in war. I'm a peaceful person. I don't want war waged on me every time I turn around. And that's what's happening. And so, this 3-hour, exercise here, this 3-hour podcast or live cast or whatever, was to just kind of like go through this and explain to you that it doesn't really look like it's going to end. The kids are gone.
Completely indoctrinated.
Totally indoctrinated. And there are good things happening because I don't think that the World Economic Forum
is as powerful as they say they are.
As you think it is.
Yeah.
I think, as they say it is, I think that they're waffling. And they're waffling because of people like us and people like you and people like Allison and all of us working together we just won't shut up about it. There's a flurry of voices coming up out of the ground, and people are like, "Oh my God, shut up about this!" And we won't.
And our friend Kevin Jenkins, it was either in the interview that we did with him or beforehand when we were talking before we went on air. He was saying, "We are having an effect larger than you think."
Right.
And the reason that I say that is because they are pushing back harder because we are opposing them. Exactly. The fact that they are pushing back hard and pushing back harder is because we are pushing back. So keep up the fight.
Yeah.
Don't let them convince you that nothing is happening. they are pushing back hard because they know that we are pushing back and not accepting their bullshit.
Right. So, and I think that, and then we can wrap it up. I promise, because it is 10:30. I also think that not everybody needs to have a complete understanding of what a human capital bond market is or what a sustainable development goal is. I think you've got, as long as you've got people that say, I don't think that this is about a disease, and I don't like seeing my kid, with a mask on his face 8 hours a day and turning into something that I don't recognize. That's enough. Like right there, right then and there, just to have the question and to have the doubt about what the Center for Disease Control says, or what your doctor says, or what your school administrators or teachers say that you have to do. Like to just question their motives behind what they're telling you to do, then that is enough. Just enough doubt to say, wait a minute, this doesn't pass the sniff test.
Wait a
and
minute.
Then you get someone like Julie and JP coming along and saying, well, it's about sustainable development goals and absolute surveillance and turning your kids into robots and human capital markets. You're going to lose people. They're like, what? I don't know what that means. I don't know what language you're talking. But if you just say, it's good for you to question and have the doubt, then that's all that matters. That's all that matters, because as a human being, you have a right to think. You have a right to say no. You have a right to question whatever you want.
Ask
and
questions.
for them to tell you that you don't have the right, that's a red flag right there. That's all you need to know. So anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been awesome, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
for
been
joining
really
us.
good. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
And sticking with us for, 3.5
Like,
hours.
An extra hour and a half.
Yeah,
That's pretty
I know.
amazing.
Well,
So,
I kind of thought maybe it would go a little bit over, but
yeah, but it went a lot over than we thought.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised at our energy level that we were
I know.
able to
I
do
know.
this
I'm sleepy.
for so long. I know we're feeling sleepy. It's 10:30 East Coast time, and wherever you are, it's your time. But I hope you were able to get some snacks and have a couple drinks and relax and shoot the breeze with us.
Thank you. Yeah, and for those of you,
thank
you.
all the
Oh,
hearts.
yeah, that's actually
We,
really sweet. 'Cause,
we,
yeah, thank you,
We
Sherry.
appreciate all of you out there who are
Yeah.
supporting us and watching our videos and sharing our work.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work, sharing our work. And it was fun. Yeah. Thank you, Lucy
Thank
Cat.
you, Lucy Cat.
And
So maybe-
everybody who's joined us, thank you. And happy spring, because it's coming up. It's been a beautiful day. It's going to be beautiful again tomorrow. Excuse me, albeit a little chilly. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think despite the SAIs, that, we're still going to have a nice spring. So
I think so.
ignore
I
the
think-
assholes. Do what you need to do to survive, and by all means, keep it positive.
Yeah.
Not in a toxic positivity way, but in an authentic, positive, and happy sense.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys. Keep up the
Thanks.
good work too,
Okay.
because you're all. It's everybody's doing everything, and we're all doing this together.
All right. Well, good night, and have a great rest of your weekend.
All right. Bye. Thank you. Bye. You want me to do this one?
Sure.